Cabarrus County Board of Commissioners work session for February the 2nd, 2015. Welcome. It seems like it's been a long time since I've seen all you people, 24 hours max, I believe. First item on our agenda is the approval of the work session agenda, and I think all of you have that in front of you, including some changes as well. Do I hear a motion to approve that agenda as presented?
Remove the closed session.
I'll add one thing to that. We will be deleting the closed session. We do not have need of closed session tonight. So do you accept that amendment? Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Thank you. Moving on to our discussion items, I will mention one thing before we go there. We have had a very busy couple of days, starting out with our Cabarrus Summit on Thursday night. I want to thank all the municipal elected officials that participated in that. I felt like it went extremely well. I think it was a very good thing and began a process of increased communication and cooperation, and and then followed that up with 2 days of retreats for our board, and just wanted to publicly thank all of our staff, Mike and Pam and Jonathan and Megan and all of the others that were involved in that made it a very smooth and productive process, and I think we gained a lot from that experience. So thank you all very much. First discussion item is Cabarrus County Child Protection Team and Child Fatality Team. And I believe Paula Yost is here to talk to us about that.
Thank you, Megan. I'm Paula Yost, and this is Suzanne Knight. And combined, I'm the chair of the County Child Protection Team, and Suzanne is the chair of the county's Child Fatality Team. Some of the information that I'm going to be sharing with you may be disturbing this evening, but I would like for you to note that any of the statistics I'm sharing with you are consistent with the state averages. Concord is no better, we're no worse. As a nation, we have an issue with denial with regards to child abuse and neglect. And the first step on the pathway to being better when it comes to child abuse and neglect is to face the realities and come up with constructive means of confronting that problem. And that's what hopefully I'll be able to share with all of you today. I think we're missing a slide. Thank you. So what is Child Protection Team? We are mandated by the North Carolina General Statutes. We're an interdisciplinary group of community representatives who meet regularly to discuss child abuse and neglect within the county. Our partners are pretty much everyone in the system in Cabarrus County who deal with children. So it's the school system, DHS, the hospital, law enforcement, the EMTs, all the major players who would touch children come. We usually have between 30 and 40 attendees at each of our meetings. There is a child protection team in every county, and if you want to read more about us, the statute is listed below. And I'm ready for the next slide. Sorry. Okay, so North Carolina has a best interest of the child standard, which I think is worth mentioning. Basically, the courts have said that child custody is determined by what is going to promote the best interest and welfare of the child. North Carolina law does not list all the factors that would be considered, but they do give us some helpful examples. And those examples include whether or not domestic violence has occurred or will occur in the home, the overall safety of the child's current living arrangement, and relationship with both parents, each parent's ability to provide for the child, and whether or not each parent creates a stable home environment. Next slide. We also have a child fatality team, which is similar to child protection, except the focus of child fatality is to examine all of the deaths of children that occurred during the previous calendar year. We discuss each case and ponder ways that those deaths could have been prevented. Some counties do these separately, but in Cabarrus County, we have decided to combine them both because it has made the most sense because all of our committee members cross. It's pretty much the same in both of them. And our goal is to become the top child protection and child fatality team in the state of North Carolina. Okay, during 2013, so child fatalities run a calendar year behind for our evaluation. So during 2014, we would have reviewed all the 2013 deaths. We had a total of 25 deaths of children in the county. Most of them, as you can see, were due to prematurity or extreme immaturity of a newborn. And there are some birth defects. Assuming the mother has had proper prenatal care, there is little that our team can do about those types of deaths. But the other ones that are listed lower are the ones that we do get concerned about. Certainly homicides are always a concern. Suicides are a concern. We've also had a lot of issues with drowning and asphyxia. So asphyxia in these statistics is co-sleeping. That's what we call the mother or father who falls asleep with the infant in the bed or in the recliner, and the child ends up passing away. And unfortunately, that seems to be a fairly common cause of death in the county right now. And even during 2014, it seems like we were having about one death by co-sleeping per quarter, I would say. The most harmful things for children in Cabarrus County that our team has identified during the last year are domestic violence, child abuse, which includes physical and sexual abuse and maltreatment, unintentional injury, which is back to co-sleeping and drowning, and a mental health with a focus on depression and anxiety in parents and children. We also do know that mental health with regards to substance abuse is a serious problem, but Healthy Cabarrus has a wonderful initiative for dealing with mental health and substance abuse. And because no team can do everything, we're leaving that with the CHA because that's really their wheelhouse. Homelessness has also been identified as a problem, but the county does have a homelessness task force that has been working on that topic as well. So we're letting them handle that. Some of the positives, if there can be any, some of the positives about domestic violence. One is that all of the Cabarrus County social workers did receive a special 4-hour training on how to deal with domestic violence cases. We currently have 2 county batter intervention programs. So a batter intervention program is not the same thing as anger management. That's where men or anyone who has offended, it's just traditionally, statistically, almost always men, who have beaten their wives, are sentenced to a class, a batter intervention group that lasts 26 weeks and is $40 a class per the 26-week time span. We have 2 of those in the county right now. We have one at Genesis and we have one at Promises 12, and both of those are mandated by the state and have state requirements attached to them. CVAN continues to answer our questions and help us as needed. CVAN deals, as you know, with only the women. They're not dealing with the male offenders. Our team hopes to also provide some potential legislation to our state representatives in the future, which will require background checks for online dating websites, because we've definitely seen that as a problem in many of our cases, where the offender is met on an online dating site and is brought into the home with little knowledge of who he is or what his background entails. What do we need with regards to domestic violence? We need more education for our youth. We need that to begin in elementary school. And we need to make sure that our mandatory reporters are reporting, especially when children are involved. We could use the officers in the school being better trained on domestic violence, not only among teenagers in teenage domestic violence relationships, but in elementary school children who are observing domestic violence between their parents or between their parents and their parents' partners. Some of our partners have suggested that having more than one agency or more than one shelter would be helpful, that need is there in the county. More information on resources and active bystanding education for kids. And Active bystanding education for kids came up in our committee because we actually had one child that we reviewed who was a homicide. The child woke up in the middle of the night to the sound of his mother's boyfriend beating his mother. He tried to intervene in the fight, and he was killed as a result of that. So we really need to do something to teach our children that if they observe a domestic violence incident in the home, they need to stay out of the way and dial 911. Right now, we've been doing active research in attempts to find some form of education-based program that can teach the children that, and nationwide, we can't find one. There doesn't appear to be a program around. The county does have the talent to write our own, honestly. We have the mental health specialists, the school systems, and the child life specialists at the Jeff Gordon Children's Hospital to write a bystander education curriculum for children, but that goes back to funding. We've got to have the funding and the time and the requirements to be able to do that. Next slide, this is something the commissioners will be familiar with. These are our child abuse numbers. So these are all of the reportings that DHS had in the last calendar year. They ended up having 2,500 calls. Just think about that. Those are suspected child abuse and neglect cases. They accepted 1,384. The average number of children in foster care in any given month was 95.7, and the good news is the bottom number, which is those are the number of foster children who were moved to permanence. So permanence can mean adoption. It can mean that your parents got themselves back together and you got to move home with your family. It could mean that you aged out of foster care by turning 18. The next slide is our CAC numbers. So CAC stands for Children's Advocacy Center. The Children's Advocacy Center in Cabarrus County is actually run by Dr. Rosalina Conroy, who is sitting to my left. Dr. Conroy is a board-certified child abuse pediatrician, and we're very blessed to have her in Cabarrus County. There are only 360 board-certified child abuse pediatricians in the entire country, and we only have 15 within the state of North Carolina, most of whom are concentrated in the Research Triangle area. So we're very blessed to have Dr. Conroy here. And what has happened in the last year since Dr. Conroy took over her position as medical director of the CAC is that they've changed the model. So in the past, if you suspected that your child had been physically or sexually abused, you took your child to the pediatrician. You no longer have to do that. They all go to the CAC. All the kids who have those concerns go to the CAC for a full health evaluation. Also, they see the siblings of children. So if you think that the 5-year-old in the family is being sexually abused, you're also going to interview the 5-year-old, 7-year-old sister to see if the 7-year-old has any concerns. I could talk about the amazing things that the CAC does all day long. That's a whole other presentation. I would recommend either inviting Dr. Conroy back to do her own presentation or making an appointment at the CAC to go learn about what they do. You cannot just walk into the CAC because we do try to keep offenders from being there to intimidate the children, but their process is quite amazing and up to national standards. So we do recommend learning more about her. So what do we need with regards to child abuse as a county? One thing that we would really like to see is more Cabarrus County residents taking the Darkness to Light training at the YMCA. So the Kannapolis YMCA has a woman named Jamie Eager who is certified to give the Darkness to Light training. And the Darkness to Light training teaches parents or anyone who loves a child how to be aware of child sexual abuse and what to do to prevent it. It's largely focused on prevention. And we would like to see 10% of Cabarrus County be certified in Darkness to Light. It's a 2-hour class. It costs $10. So that would be a great start. Second of all, we would like to spread awareness of the Children's Advocacy Center and what they do. Commissioner Honeycutt actually did a great job of doing that last year. The Children's Advocacy Center had run out of blankets. Every child who comes in gets to select a blanket from a closet, and Commissioner Honeycutt sent an email to all of her employees and said, "Hi, this is what we need." She collected over 1,200 blankets for the CAC and supplied them for a whole year. So it can be as simple as sending an email to say, "Hey, we have a child abuse. We have a sexual abuse prevention center here." The child welfare structure within DHS has actually recently been restructured since Cheryl Harris was hired to be in charge of child welfare. Our partners are very satisfied with the direction that DHS is taking and with the job that Cheryl is doing. We're very pleased with Cheryl. We need more education regarding domestic violence and the connection to abuse. Most of the time, parents who have been in domestic violence court will say, well, I was only hitting the mom. I don't see how I deserve to have my kids taken away because I wasn't hitting the kids, I was hitting their mother. And we really have to do something to change that mindset that abusing a mother is abusing her child. We'd also like to use the media and public service announcements. And we also are very focused on pursuing the faith community and trying to get our churches more involved in the reality of child abuse and neglect and what they can do to help. This is a model called the Hayden Matrix that we use to explain how unintentional injuries work and to brainstorm unintentional injuries. So we'll talk about things like ways to prevent drownings, ways to prevent deaths by co-sleeping, and the Hayden Matrix is also something that Dr. Conroy came up with that's been very helpful to our team. With regards to unintentional injury, some of the things that we need is, number one, to stop calling them accidents. Because accidents mean that it was just an accident. No one takes any accountability for what happened. But a child-related injury, an unintentional injury, means that there is some accountability for not watching the child or for sleeping with the child in a way that is dangerous. Again, having another PSA would be helpful, younger education, and substance abuse treatment is a very common theme with death by co-sleeping. Lots of the cases of co-sleeping death that we've seen in the county have involved a parent who was intoxicated or had recently been using at the time of the death. They still, of course, did not intend to kill the child. The death was an accident. There was no intent to harm the kid. But substance abuse and caring for a newborn definitely need to be educated on. We're kind of on the fence. Some child protection teams do have billboards that they put up on busy roads that try to educate the public. We're kind of split on that. We don't know that we love that idea, and even if we did, we don't really have a budget for that. So there is that. And then just more early intervention in schools. One of our other problems is mental health, and it's very hard for us to provide you specific numbers. What I would tell you is that mental health is a far greater problem nationwide than what anyone is giving it credit for, and we see that every day when we work with child protection and fatalities. And I cannot begin to express to any of you the problems and the ripple effect that come when a child has a suicide. That affects the entire school. It affects that child's parents, their families, those children's parents. It ends up affecting everyone. There's no way that it doesn't. And so child suicide is also something we can't take for granted. With regard to mental health, we need a well-structured response to a mental health crisis. And that's, again, is a nationwide problem. That's not a Cabarrus County problem. We need more funding to pick up our mental health crises. And that can be in terms of a mobile crisis unit being faster. It can also be with a faster emergency room response. If you have a mental health crisis and you need to go to Broughton or to a psychiatric facility, they have to have a bed for you. And many of our facilities do not have a bed for a minor because you have to have a facility that takes minors. And so it's a completely different ball game when you're looking at mental health and kids. And if you're looking at me thinking, well, that doesn't really happen, does it? Yes, it does. We've seen at least 3 in the last year within this county. We also do not have enough school counselors. School counselors in our county and nationwide are overloaded by children and by testing requirements. I believe our current numbers are 1 school counselor for every 450 children. There is no way a school counselor can provide effective counseling to 450 children in a school, none whatsoever. And so definitely funding school counselors is something that we need, particularly in schools where there is high risk of mental health issues, like our poverty-laden areas or schools where we've recently had a suicide. It would also be helpful if citizens would be willing to take question, persuade, refer, or mental health first aid from the Cabarrus Mental Health Association, the Mental Health Association of the Central Carolinas. They have a grant in this county where they can provide QPR for free. You just have to set it up and have people attend it. We also just need a diminishment in shame. No one should be ashamed to get mental health treatment. It's a disease. If you had diabetes, I wouldn't tell you not to take your insulin. And last, we really need more bilingual assistance. And when we're also looking at things in terms of the groups that you guys have established in the schools, like Concord High has fire, and then I know Hickory Ridge that has the culinary school. It would be fantastic if we could start focusing on bilingualism. Regardless of the political views of bilingualism or of immigrants coming into the county, they're here and they're not going away. And we need people who can communicate with them, because if they have a mental health problem, we don't have counselors who are qualified to treat that right now. The next slide is on the first 2,000 days. In the interest of time, I'm just going to share that website with you, because that's a helpful website to go to if you want to learn more about early childhood development. The second slide is the same. We'll also skip that in the interest of time. I do want to touch on this one, which is what happens when a child is failed. And these are statistics that I obtained from the website you just saw. North Carolina employers face obstacles every single day with regard to children who are lacking in the education and communication skills required to advance in jobs. Close to half of our North Carolina employees have reported deficiencies in critical thinking and problem-solving abilities. So if you're saying someone can't think outside the box, that's what we're talking about. 60% of North Carolina employers have reported problems with communication skills. And this is an area that our partners or our competitors understand. China has made early childhood development a national priority. Next, in this slide also, what happens when a child is failed? So by failing a child, we mean a child being failed with regard to their basic needs of education, safety, food, shelter, what you would see on the lower level of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. One, we have a national security problem. As of right now, 75% of Americans ages 17 to 24 cannot meet the military's eligibility requirements. That's either because they didn't finish high school, they can't pass a physical due to obesity, or they have a criminal record. Next slide. Also, what happens when a child is failed? This is the most important slide that I feel I have to show with any of you. Because what happens when a child is failed is that they go to jail. 39,000 inmates in the state of North Carolina. Our inmates are in there because we're failing a lot of them as kids. And I'm not saying that, bad children can't happen to good parents. Of course, there's always an anomaly. But for the most part, children who are sexually assaulted, children who are abused, children who witness domestic violence, children who grow up in poverty, children who are not given a good quality education, are the children who are going to grow up to rob your house and steal your car. If you've ever been through a home invasion, you know the aggravation that comes with filing an insurance report and having to resecure your home. In almost every one of those cases, if you look back, you're going to see a child who was failed in some way. And so if you're going to invest in something, if you want to look at where is our county going to be in 30 years and how amazing do we want it to be, paying for our kids is going to get you more than anything else you can do, because our kids are going to grow up to be healthy, kind, tax-paying citizens who qualify for the workforce and the military, and they're not going to be robbing your homes or your cars and filling up our jail. Next slide. How can the county commissioners help? First of all, always consider the best interests of the child. Always go back to that statutory umbrella. Ask us. If you have any question relating to children in Cabarrus County, our team is your experts. Call us, email us, reach out to us. We would love to hear from you. We meet the fourth Wednesday of every month at DHS from 12 to 2. Any county commissioner who wants to attend is more than welcome to do so. Also, mention us when you're quoted in the paper or other venues. The office of county commissioner, by its very nature, carries esteem and respect. At least it should. I think it does. Use that to promote us and our work. And the last thing, this is a quote that I heard from the pastor at Venture Church in Harrisburg. He said, "We are not all called to adopt, but we are all called to do something." This is a success story that we had this year with a child who went through the Parents and Teachers Program, which is funded by the Cabarrus Partnership for Children. It was a teenager who had been exposed to an excessive amount of domestic violence and who had her baby and ended up living in the mother and children's house, who's doing great. So if anyone ever tells you this money's being wasted, these people are never going to get better, that is a lie. I see children get better every single day. You just have to know who to ask to give you the right stories. We also have had some great community partners this year, and this slide is all about Central United Methodist Church, and Central is just one among many churches who have been doing a lot to help our kids. Central UMC alone collected 63 winter coats for children this year for the Junior League. They have multiple groups of supplied Easter baskets, landscaping services to the Mac House, which is the mother and children's home. They do a backpack ministry, which provides food to needy kids. In their total, they believe they've touched well over 150 Cabarrus County children. And it's important to note as well that helping our children is not something that can solely be done by the County Commission and our tax dollars. Certainly you can help, you certainly play a critical role, but the community is also willing and able to help. They just need to know how and who to ask. But we definitely have a county who's willing. This next to last slide, Ashley Shanley is our Chief Assistant District Attorney, and Ashley Shanley prosecutes every single sex offense or rape case that we've had in Cabarrus County. Both of those two images are pedophiles who were recently sentenced to prison time within the last 2 years. The man on the left, I believe, has over 100 years of jail time that he will be facing for multiple counts of child molestation. The little boy who he harmed went on to commit suicide. And the gentleman on the other side was a pastor who took advantage of the most innocent children that he had access to. He, I believe, is serving a much lower sentence because of the charges that he faced. But we want to publicly thank the District Attorney's Office, our county law enforcement, and the Children's Advocacy Center, because without those people working together, we wouldn't have these people facing the consequences of their actions. And so we very much appreciate the county response in those areas. I think the last thing I would add about this is that if you're watching this on public television and you are a pedophile, get help and move. Because if you molest a child in Cabarrus County, you're going to get caught, the child's going to go through the CAC, and you are going to be prosecuted. Next slide. So that was our spiel for 2014. I'm willing to answer any questions that any of the commissioners may have about child protection and what we do.
Commissioners, do you have questions?
I do have a couple of questions.
Yes, Ms. Minor.
Going through it, and which I did before I came this afternoon, and looking at some of the numbers, they appear, in light of the size of our county, to be small. Mm-hmm. And some people would say, well, that's not a very big problem, and I'm sure it is a big problem, and there's numbers that go far beyond what you mentioned. What kind of help does the state give counties, and what can we do as commissioners to lobby the state to do more? Because in larger numbers, you're likely to get more.
That's an excellent
help.
question, Commissioner Minette, and I think the answer to that would be our numbers are consistent with the state. For a town the size of Cabarrus County, for our population, our numbers are consistent. I think what we would want to touch on is the fact that for people who try to make the argument of, well, these are small numbers, these are our children. And so if anything that we can do saves one child, If you look at down the road, what that's going to save the county in terms of tax dollars, because all the children in foster care are costing us money. We're having to fund the foster care experience for those children. If they get out of foster care and they're adults and they're committing crimes, then we're having to pay for them to serve their time in our local jails and prisons. So I think if you're going to look at the numbers don't matter. The size of the numbers really are irrelevant. It's the fact that these are young kids. If you catch a child early enough, you can press the reset button on a child much easier than you can a 40-year-old man who's become a career criminal. It's much easier. So if you want to look at your dollars and your cents, I would go back to that model of if the state wants to do more and wants to fund more, we need to fund it early. Fund the kids, because the kids are going to be the ones that cut your problems off at the past.
This is not a question, this is a comment and a statement. I know that Diane and you recognize Diane, and that was a fantastic thing that she did last year. But I think Diane and I probably felt a little bit of pride that you mentioned Central Church, and I know how much that church does, and others do the same.
Exactly.
And that is a tremendous way to get these things going. Is there any kind of a speakers bureau or any individuals that can be called upon to speak to clubs and organizations to spread that type of help?
Absolutely. One of the top speakers I would recommend is Dr. Conroy. I would have Dr. Conroy speak to anyone. She's a fantastic source, especially when you want to talk to the reality about child sexual abuse. I would just try to keep your audiences older, 18 and above, if Dr. Conroy is speaking, at least, unless you're having her do a prevention class for children. Right. Ashley Shanley, our Chief Assistant District Attorney, is also fantastic, and I'm willing to speak to anyone. All they need to do is call.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So thank you on the blankets. I will say that was a community effort, and I would thank a lot of the employees in this room. The county, I think, donated 70 to 80 blankets, and churches 70 and 80. So there was a lot of response to that plea. So thank you to the community for that. I have two other things. One is on the bilingual piece. Is that something that you're looking for from a volunteer perspective, or?
No, it's not. I think that we are really getting to the place where we need that to be something we're looking at in terms of growing our kids. We do have 2 bilingual preschools that are getting ready to start in the county, which is great. We've never had a bilingual preschool before. One is in Kannapolis, that's a for-profit school, and one is going to be opening in Concord, that's a nonprofit school. That's going to be fabulous because those kids are going to learn preschool in English and Spanish. And Spanish-speaking and English-speaking children are all going to be welcome there. Ultimately, at the end of the day, I think we need to increase our Spanish education for kids moving on up, particularly if we have children who we've identified as being very good with language skills. You know, everybody can't be an engineer. If you have a child who's terrible at math but who's rocking their verbal classes, get them into some sort of Spanish program because, I mean, you can finish high school at 18 and have no skill but being bilingual and be hired somewhere far faster than anyone else.
And the only other thing I would say is I did attend one of your meetings maybe back in the summer, and I will certainly say that you guys are very passionate and committed to what you do, and thank you for what you're doing for here in our community and our kids.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, all I would say is, Paula, first off, you did an excellent presentation, and but you mentioned here in the need with regards to mental health.
Yes.
You are aware that we have English as a second language in our schools.
Yes.
Most of the schools have that, you know, elementary on up, you know, into high school English. And I'm assuming a lot of your referrals and things come from the schools.
They do. English as a second language, however, is working beautifully. I'm not concerned about English as a second language being offered. I'm more concerned about our English-speaking children who can't speak Spanish. You know, there seems to be this attitude of, I'm just going to be blunt, you know, why do we all need to learn Spanish? They're not learning English. Well, the reality is that in order to be able to communicate with other people, you need to be able to speak a common language. And if you work in a hospital emergency room or you're an EMT, it always helps to have somebody who knows how to speak Spanish. Quite frankly, I wish I had learned how to speak it as a child. I'm very focused on getting that instilled in my 1-year-old right now. We just need more people. English as a second language is going great. But I think we need to do more about instilling Spanish as a second language.
I think Carl A. Furr is addressing that too with the SPLASH program.
Yes.
And that has expanded. They just recently expanded it, and so, and it's probably going to be expanded even more to another elementary school.
That's great.
And so, I mean, so as far as the school system is concerned, I think that they are always making advancements toward this. And I, like you, wish that I had taken Spanish in high school too, because, you know, we're living in a more diverse community than we ever have in the history of Cabarrus County. And it's just about to the point that if you don't speak Spanish, you don't communicate, because so many of our workers are migrant workers, and they can speak some English, but it's not much. But
Well, and also, there are tremendous health benefits that go from learning how to speak another language as a child. Studies have shown that people who are bilingual tend to develop Alzheimer's less frequently, because those neurons in the brain that connect when you're learning to speak multiple languages, it's very good for your overall development. So it's not only a matter of increasing communication, it's having people qualified to do jobs, and it's a public health issue as well.
I agree with you, Paula. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I have had some experience with the Parents as Teachers program,
Yes.
and that was one of my first experiences speaking to a group of people with an interpreter, and it goes both ways. It's a lot more difficult than you would imagine.
It is.
Now, I'm sure that my high school Spanish teacher may be watching this program and saying, you had 3 years of Spanish, you should be able to, but I think now we all realize the importance a little bit more than I did at that time. But the question that I had, you mentioned a number of different organizations or positions. You talked about the school counselors, and I truly believe that you're correct in what you say. They have a lot of responsibilities other than counseling. Two other positions in the schools that this board's involved with some funding are the school resource officers and the school nurses. And does that help? Does that play into?
It does. It does. Basically, our position would be, if it involves the kids, fund it. Honestly, that's my position. We have to have school resource officers. We have to have school nurses, especially now that we have a movement of parents who are choosing not to vaccinate their children. We absolutely cannot have an environment where WebMD is a reliable medical source. We have to have the nurses in the school. And Dr. Conroy, would you like to speak to that?
Yes, I agree. A lot of times, the children are going to tell things to the nurses that they're not going to tell their parents. They may not even tell their friends. So I think that the nurses are definitely a key piece of this, because when they do see something, then they can call and they can make the referral to the CAC. Same thing with the school resource officers. They're the ones who are going to be interacting more with the kids, and then doing a whole lot of prevention. So that's kind of how I look at it, is the prevention piece and the identification piece.
Well, that's good to hear, and that basically was my question. Are these things working together?
Yes.
And I serve on the Cabarrus Partnership for Children Board as well, and is that interface there?
It is. The Cabarrus Partnership for Children is one of our partners as well, and Ann Benfield and Elizabeth Albright are at every meeting that we have, without fail. Right now, the actions of the Cabarrus Partnership are funding a tremendous amount of therapeutic programs on the mental health side. They're paying for the, what's it called? The Parent-Children Interactive Therapy, PCIT, which is a new form of therapy where when parents are having issues with their kids, they're in a wall, so the parents and the kids are in one room, and the therapist is behind with an earbud talking to the parents. So they're not standing there, standing over the parents and the child. They're not taking them out of their natural environment. That has been scientifically proven to be tremendously helpful, and that would not exist in the county right now without the partnership.
Great. Well, it's good to know that these programs are working together.
Yeah, I think as a collective, our county does great with working together. As a general rule, we all work very well together because we all go back to the same common umbrella idea, which is what is in the best interest of our kids. And anytime there's an interdisciplinary fight, that's what we go back to. What's in the best interest of the children? If you always go back to that umbrella, in my opinion, you'll always come up with the correct answer.
Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We appreciate it.
The next item on our discussion items is the Humane Society, and I think that Judy Sims is here to give us an update on animal shelter operations. Welcome.
Hello. Thanks for having us again. And today I brought with me some of my fellow volunteers and officers. I have Beth King. She's our Ways and Means chairperson, and I brought with me Janet Poteet, who is the vice president in charge of the 49 campus, which you all know as the Animal Control Shelter, where we also have a presence. The Humane Society has a presence there. So I'd like for you to get to know some of my officers for the Humane Society, and I would like for them to get to know some of you as well. And thank you for having us again. It's always a pleasure to be able to give you an idea of what's going on with us, and I suspect some of you have already heard some of the things that's going on with us. So we have made a lot of changes over the past year. A lot of them have been the result of things that we've learned and things that we have needed to do, and some of them have just been aesthetic types of things that have needed to happen, but I'm delighted to be able to share those with you today. The partnership that we formed going into our third year now has certainly afforded the animals in the Cabarrus County Shelter a better chance of survival. We've worked very closely, as you know, with the county and with animal control, and now with the Department of Agriculture to implement some changes that I think, as I share them with you, and I think some of you have been out to visit us. I mean, Pampa, you were out to visit us, and you would see that our shelter is extraordinarily clean and very well run, and the animals have had a lot of opportunity that they haven't had in the past. Okay. So one of the biggest changes that's taken place over the past year is the use of social media, for example, Facebook. Now, I'm sure all of you know that Facebook can be your best friend. It can also be your biggest enemy. But we use it to get the word out about animals that we have. Animal Control also established a Cabarrus County Animal Shelter page where they can also put out animals that are waiting to be reclaimed by their owners. This is just an added way for people to be able to see if their animal is in the Cabarrus County Animal Shelter. And this has actually increased the number of animals that have been reclaimed by their owners, just in addition to the photographs that are put up on the Cabarrus County Sheriff's website as well. We've established another Facebook page called Cabarrus County Pets Available for Rescue. And what happens with that Facebook page is that once it rolls off of the Cabarrus County Animal Shelter Facebook page after 72 hours, which is the required hold period, it rolls on to that Facebook page. So any animal that's not pulled by the Humane Society or is not adopted from the animal control area is placed up for rescue. There's also one called Cabarrus Shelter Cats, and that is specifically for cats. And I have to say that our cat rescue people this year has done an amazing job of getting cats out for rescue. And when we put the slide up that will show you the extraordinarily low euthanasia numbers for our shelter, I think you're going to be astounded by what a fantastic job they've actually done. Now, another change that happened, which was actually required by the 2009 rabies law revision, was that animals in the Cabarrus County Shelter, and not just Cabarrus County Shelter, but shelters across North Carolina, are now being made available for adoption to the public, which means that we are required by that law revision to allow folks to come in, and if they see an animal that's in the back that's not reclaimed, that's not placed up for rescue, and is back there, then we can make it possible for them to actually adopt that with certain precautions in place, with certain measures in place. And that's made possible in Cabarrus County due to managed and shared resources. And I'll talk about that shortly. But that's helped us a lot as well. Okay. Another change that we discussed during my last visit here was that we have now hired a full-time registered vet technician. Before we had a vet assistant, not a registered vet technician. The advantage to having someone who is a registered, trained educated vet technician is that has allowed us to have reduced medical cost, reduced vet cost. She can do a lot of things that in the past a veterinarian would have to do. Now, we still have to take them to the veterinarian. We still have a shelter veterinarian that comes and helps us. But Amy is able to do a lot of the triage type things, a lot of the first aid type things that in the past we would have had to, and the county would have had to incur veterinary costs for. And that's a shared expense. The county shares that expense with the Humane Society. So she actually works for both the county and the Humane Society, and she is amazing. She's very, very smart and just extremely, extremely great with the animals. We also have a new intake procedure. Again, we talked about this last time. It's streamlined. There's less risk of exposure. Everything comes in the back of the house rather than coming in and going directly into kennels. We bring everything in. There are kennels in the back. They're vaccinated on intake against bordetella, which is kennel cough, and against parvo and distemper. And we have cut down on the exposure of parvo by 90% in our shelter. So that's been pretty amazing. In fact, we've only had one case of parvo in the main part of the shelter in the past year since we've implemented this program, and that was with an adult dog, and he actually came in with the virus even though he had already been vaccinated. And we quickly isolated him and moved him to the back. So we have also established an ISO room where we can isolate anything that comes in with any kind of illness so as not to expose the entire shelter. Okay? Now, another very new committee that we have formed is a rescue committee. In the past, we'd had one person that was doing that function. Turned out not to be a great idea, so this year we've established a rescue committee, which consists of our animal control admin and our registered vet tech, and a lady volunteer who came to us from another state who was very active in animal rescue with a lot of experience and a lot of exposure, and myself and a couple of other folks. And the reason for this is that it gives us a system of checks and balances, that not one person is responsible for any piece of it, and that we can all check behind ourselves, make sure that we're getting the word out, and that we're all taking care of every piece of rescue, and that no stone is left unturned with allowing these animals the absolute best chance possible to get rescued. And then another, and you guys may have heard about this, there's a new process for the intake of owner-surrendered animals. There was a lot of hoopla about this when we talked about only accepting owner-surrendered animals on Mondays and Tuesdays. That was when the euthanasia day was going to be on Wednesdays or Thursdays. The reason for that was that owners would come in who wanted to surrender their sick or injured animal to be euthanized. They would bring it in pretty much any day of the week. So we had an instance that occurred where an animal came in, he was very, very sick, came in on a Friday, and he needed to be euthanized very quickly. So we had to spring into action over the weekend to keep him from suffering. So we got together and discussed how we could avoid owner-surrendered animals who've lived their entire life in a home and keep that from happening. How could we avoid them from sitting in a shelter from maybe Friday to Wednesday or Thursday until it was time for them to be put to sleep? So we decided that we would only accept them on Mondays and Tuesdays. And now that practice is fairly well accepted, with the understanding from owners that this is what our purpose is. We're only looking out for your animals, and we want them to be comfortable. And if they are that sick, that it's in their best interest for you to take your pet to your family veterinarian to be put to sleep. Does that make sense? Another positive step that's been taken is a credit card machine was installed in the animal control intake office. This is something that is providing ease of collection of fees for reclaims, whereas in the past, if someone came in and didn't have cash and didn't have access to a checkbook or didn't have a checking account and wanted to use a credit card or something like that, they either had to go away, and maybe they didn't come back to reclaim their animal, or maybe they did come back, but it's just so much easier for them to use a credit card to pay their fee. Also, all rescue fees are going through the animal control admin office now, so that 100% of the rescues who pull are paying and helping us recoup all the vaccine and veterinary fees. and all rescues are paying the exact same amount. So in the past, it has been kind of haphazard. Some would pay one fee, some would pay another. So now we have standardized fees that they all pay, and they all go through Dina, the admin in the office, and everything is constant all the way down. So that's been something we've rallied for and are very excited to have. And these things are just, some of these are just aesthetic. The Humane Society worked with the county to replace the county-issued gravel that was in the play yard that the county was awesome enough to help us put in last year. The county-issued gravel was hard on the dogs' feet, and we were trying to understand why the dogs weren't wanting to play and exercise the way we had hoped that they would, and then it was determined by our veterinarian that the pebble was hurting their feet. But the cost of putting what needed to be in there was probably too much than that the county was willing to put forth, because it's expensive. So the Humane Society worked hard to raise the funds to put in river pebble so that we could utilize the play yards and the dogs could play and enjoy that area the way it was intended. And then the next thing that we did was we spoke with Mike Downs and asked him if we could possibly get a roof over the play yard, because when it's very hot in the summertime, we couldn't put them out there. So once again, Mike worked with us and helped us get a roof over the play yard. So now the animals can be out there when the sun's shining, and they can be in the shade and still exercise and get fresh air. So these are all things that have just made the animals happier and far more adoptable. And the next thing is, and this is very, very recent, is enhanced photographs are now being taken of all the animals that come in, cats and dogs, attached to their run sheet and to their intake sheets for a more accurate identification and placement on the social media sites. And this has probably increased our instance of reclaim by about 30%, because people are getting a better view and a better idea of this, is this my animal or is it not? And just yesterday, we had 3 people on a Sunday who saw photographs of their animals that had come in over the weekend, and some of them picked them up last night, some of them picked them up this morning. So I am particularly excited about that. So I wanted to give you guys just an opportunity to see that the Humane Society doesn't just choose the animals that are the healthiest and the prettiest ones. We choose the sick, the hungry, the needy. This particular one is a picture of a dog named Rebel. We named him Rebel. He came in actually this past Thursday night. We were having a meeting, and someone brought this dog in, completely emaciated. Just literally, he had been dumped outside near the animal control shelter and could barely move. So we took him in, gave him fluids, took him to the vet the next day, and there he is. He's thriving now, and he's going to survive. But he's an example of one that we took in that's, definitely not the most adoptable at the moment, but he will be. He's beautiful to us. So, and then the next slide will show you another couple of examples. Jessie Lynn, the one on the far left, is crippled in her back leg. She can't walk. So we're working hard raising the money to provide an MRI. All those funds are being donated by people who support the Humane Society. All of these dogs, for the most part, came from the Cabarrus County Animal Shelter. They were strays. Jessie Lynn was a stray. The dog on the far right, the one with mange, we didn't know whether that was a boy or a girl, but she has the worst case of Demodex, and nobody wanted her, tossed her out, but we took her, and she's in foster care. And the picture at the top where she's curled up on a blanket is a picture of her, how she looks now. Her hair is growing back, and she's going to be beautiful when all of her fur grows back. But we take the ones that also need us, not the ones that are just immediately adoptable. The following slide is going to show you some of the numbers of animals that have come in, cats and dogs that have come in, those that were pulled by the Humane Society, reclaimed, and gone into other rescues. But the point I really want you guys to take a look at are the remarkably low euthanasia numbers for the last quarter. Our approach is working, and we are truly making a difference in Cabarrus County with what we're doing. Our numbers are lower than they have ever been. And if you'll take a look, for example, in October, November, and December, our put-to-sleep numbers were 20% or less. If you look at the numbers of dogs that came in, like in November, 185 came in, but only 20% of those were euthanized. And if you look at the cat numbers, 183 cats came in November, 6% of those were euthanized. And one of the things that I'd like to share with you is that there's a lady that is in our organization. Her name is Marlene Jenkins, and she has worked so hard to pull out almost every single one of those cats and move them to rescue. And that's phenomenal. That is hard work. And that's working together with a lot of different rescues and a lot of different volunteers. But we are so proud of those low numbers. I mean, that's just a reflection of hard work, partnership, and the ability to roll up our sleeves, pull animals out, give them the exposure that they need, and help them to find homes. Now, our primary goal continues to be moving as many animals out of the shelter as possible, and of course into warm homes or safe sanctuaries being rescues or rescues that are going to help them find homes as well. And we endeavor to work with as many rescues as possible, both local and nationwide. Just within the past week, we have worked with transport to move a dog up to Maryland. We drove halfway. One of our volunteers hopped in the car and drove to Virginia. He drove 5 hours to meet the transport halfway. And we recently moved a blind beagle that was an owner surrender to Chicago, Illinois, so that she could find her forever home with a rescue. And we're always involved in a continuous process for improvement to keep our shelter current and forward thinking. We always know that we can learn from our mistakes. We always know that we can learn from other people. And we always know that as we continue in this process, that there are always things that we can do to make our shelter, the best that it can possibly be. And we'll always have the animal's best interest at heart. Does anyone have any questions?
I do.
Manager Downs.
Just want, so we can get the information out so people can see. Who has, of the rescue services, is there any limitation as to who can rescue dogs from your facility?
No. Anybody that is speaking specifically of rescues, anybody that is a 501c3 organization can rescue or pull dogs from our facility. And the way we manage it now is if two rescues are interested in the same animal, we have taken the same approach that Charmette takes. We just put it in a hat and draw it out so that it's fair. But anybody can pull, either local, it doesn't matter who they are, but they have to be a 501c3, and they have to provide that documentation to us the first time they pull from us.
Okay. So there's no facilities or no rescue services that have been pulled from that list? They all have the ability?
There absolutely isn't. And we have worked with local rescues, but there are absolutely no rescues that have been banned at all.
Access or hours of operation for families to adopt or come and view and then adopt?
The hours for people to come and adopt are Monday through Friday, 2 to 5, Saturday, 12 to 4, and Sunday, 2 to 4.
Are you required, is the shelter required to be inspected on a regular basis? If so, how often and how do those inspections go?
Yes, we are required. Now we are inspected by the Department of Agriculture, and it's a pretty tedious inspection, and we are inspected now. We're supposed to be inspected once a quarter, and those inspections, if in case anybody's interested, are placed out on the Department of Agriculture website for public viewing, and you can go into the Department of Agriculture website and look at our latest inspections. And our inspector he spends a lot of time with us when he comes, and he's been very pleased with what he has seen at our shelter, and we either pass or we fail. And if we don't pass, then we can't keep our doors open. But we're judged based on cleanliness, based on our ability to provide safe sanctuary for the animals, and basically just the overall appearance. But it's multifold how we're judged.
Are there any outstanding corrective actions at our shelter that have not been corrected?
Not at all. We Jay Blatchkey is our state inspector, and he was there in December and was extremely pleased with us. We've been working on a new euthanasia protocol. We have a new veterinarian who's doing it, so everything has to be in writing. So we spent a lot of time that last of December working that through with Lieutenant Taylor. But we have absolutely no outstanding issues whatsoever.
And how is, you have a good, our sheriff's department, in addition to private individuals bring animals in, but our sheriff's department through their animal control bring animals in as well. What is that relationship? How is it going well?
With animal control?
Yes.
Our relationship with animal control is awesome. The way it works is animal control brings the animal in through the back when they pick it up, and once it comes in through the back, it becomes my responsibility and my staff's responsibility to take care of it. And Lieutenant Taylor and his team work very well. We put a standard operating procedure in place wherein if an animal comes in on the weekend or comes in after hours and is injured, their first matter of protocol once they secure the animal is to call me so that I can make sure that it gets assessed, and if it needs emergency medical attention, we can get that for the animal. We have had a great working relationship with animal control for the past 2, going into our 3rd year with that contract in place.
And for the board's information, Judy did mention some of the business operations that have been updated. They've been updated in the last couple of months. They have been very willing to. We suggested those changes. They've been very willing to participate in those changes, and they're already making positive. They're already moving in a positive direction for the business. Same thing with the shelter operations. I will verify and can verify that it's as clean as that it's ever been. It's amazing with all the animals that come in and out of there. It's amazing that it's that clean. So, one thing in our contract with the Humane Society, and Judy and I have talked to this, and as well as the sheriff, and there is a requirement in there, or there should be, that there is an oversight advisory board. Judy has gone and on her own and created the Rescue Service Advisory Board, but it requires in our contract, and we used to have the old APAC group, and they've not really met for several years now. So what I would recommend to you is that we create an advisory board, and it's not a board that would supervise their operation. It would just be it would be in a board that they can bounce ideas off, staff can bounce ideas off, and then help us to just improve the operations, and then also keep you abreast of what's going on. So we'll bring that. We'll come up with sort of a job description for you and bring that to you in March, if you're in agreement with that. Again, we're not looking for somebody or a group to more or less supervise the shelter. That's not what this is for. This is more of a sounding board and an advisory. If they've got some ideas, hey, try this, then they can bring them to myself or to Judy and her group, and then and see if they're successful. If not, if they aren't, or if there's problems. Right now, I can guarantee you right now, if there's a problem or a perceived problem, I'm getting the phone call. It would be great to have an advisory group to have that, to vet it before it comes here. So I have talked to Judy. She had some concerns, and I don't blame her for having concerns at first, and I wanted to make sure and publicly say and reinforce it is not a group that will supervise the shelter. Again, it's just to bounce ideas off and that type of thing. So if you're in agreement or consensus-wise tonight, we will move forward and create that job description and then start recruiting for that. And I would think that it would be people who are interested in the field and also people who are not interested in the field of animal control or animal rescue, so that you would, maybe a business person or maybe just a community activist and that type of thing. So we'll create a job description for them, or sort of a charge, and then get that back to you in March, if that's okay with you guys. Great. Good? Okay.
Other questions for Judy? Well, thank you very much for being with us. I have one question. I think I may have asked this last time. What are the sequence of events that causes somebody in Maryland to want pet from Cabarrus County, I would think they would have lots of pets up there that need to be adopted. So I'm just curious what the circumstances.
You're talking about why would a rescue from Maryland pull from us?
Right.
Well, a couple of different reasons. There are not a lot of puppies and kittens for adoption up in Maryland, and there's a rescue in Maryland called Second Chance Puppy Rescue, and they also pull kittens. They don't have a lot of them in specific areas, but there may be certain breeds that are more prevalent here than there are in other areas, and there may be certain breed-specific rescues. For example, we sent the blind beagle. There are not a lot of blind beagle rescues or people willing to take them in this area because there are so many hunting beagles in this area that most people who have beagles have whole, healthy beagles. But in Chicago, where there are not a lot of hunting beagles, they provide those sanctuaries for them. So that's their specialty. So it's just specific. And like up in New York, they have an abundance of pit bulls, as do we, but they don't have a lot of small dogs. So they're willing to take any small dog that we could possibly send them. So it's an availability type thing.
Right.
And we're willing to work with them. And some of the northern rescues and some of the other rescues, they've been fantastic supporters of ours. Because there are only so many local rescues, and most of them are smaller, and most of them are saturated with the dogs just in the area.
Right. Well, it's wonderful to have those resources and be able to match it up. And when I die, I hope that I come back as one of Grace Minot's dogs because they're treated very, very, very well. Thank you for what you do, and thank you for taking the time and coming and talk with us.
Thank you for having us.
I do have a question. When you do that, when you send dogs out of state to another rescue, how do you know, and I'm sure you do, but how do you check to make sure that that's legitimate and it's not somebody that's going to take the dog and do the improper thing with it?
So what we do is, first of all, they have to be a 501c3 organization, as we are, and we have to get the paperwork, and they have to speak to me directly, or they have to, and we check their references. They have to provide references from other organizations that they have pulled from. And there's certain things that they have to request that allow us to know that they've done this before. And they have to request, for example, a health certificate, and they want certain vetting done. And if anything comes back, and word of mouth is, as you know, a very powerful thing, if any of their references come back with anything negative in it, then we'll, first of all, investigate a little further. But if there's any reluctance whatsoever, or if there's a transport that we're working with that won't transport to that area, then we'll turn them down. Or if they've had anything bad in their, in their resume, then we'll turn them down. And there are some that have probably not the best interest of the animals at heart, but for the most part, the ones that are willing to pay the pull fees to transport the dog, because transportation, across the United States is not cheap. So, most of them are on the up and up, but we check them out very well.
Any other questions, commissioners? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next on our discussion items is some discussion of regulation of biosolids in Cabarrus County, and Manager Downs is going to update us on that.
Just wanted to give you an update as to where staff is on several issues related to the concerns of some of the citizens in the northeast part of the county concerning the spreading or application of biosolids to several parcels of agricultural land out there. And then also the second issue was what you have read in the paper of violations that had been cited by the state of North Carolina on a different application, a different material, on a different pieces of property. So as far as the biosolids application, the sludge, we again continued our discussions with representatives from DENR, or Department of Environmental and Natural Resources, Mr. John Risgard, as well as David Goodrich. They are both in charge. John is the supervisor, and David is more of the practitioner, is reviewing and processing the application. My understanding from them is that from David Goodrich is that tentatively they're looking for the public hearing to take place in March, and with notifications once the site is selected to go out soon. So they're supposed to. I've already talked with Mr. Goodrich one time, offered up Mount Pleasant Middle School, and he thinks that location will suit them fine. He did not commit yet. He will get back with us with a couple of dates after they confer with their staff at the state level. So we feel pretty comfortable that if the date doesn't work for middle school, then it may work for the high school, so it should be in that area. So as soon as that happens, we will make sure you get that information. We will also make sure that this is posted publicly as well, either on the website and on our on Channel 22, if that's appropriate as well. I did talk with Mr. Risgaard as well on the process of passing on county concerns from the board to them. What form should it take, a letter, a resolution? There was no preferred form or method. However, he said if we do, you can send something in now if you have some concerns or some suggestions or through the process. However, in order to make it official, in order to make it have impact on the application, they need to receive it and document it during the recorded public information time, which is from the public hearing for 30 to 60 days. Mr. Marshall, is that about right? 30 to 60 days after the public hearing. So we will make sure there's something in place between Mr. Cook and myself to get something drafted so that you can vet it, and then we'll have it ready to send out during that, either present it at the public hearing as well as send it out during that required time. As far as enforcement, there were some questions at your last meeting concerning the enforcement of our ordinances on the parcels and the property owner that was cited in the paper, that there was an application or dumping of a byproduct of the Stay-Lite, right? That's the Stay-Lite facility on one of the farms out there. It just happens that it is Mr. Klein's property on another parcel of his property. So the state is reviewing that. They have made their initial visits, and Ms. Morris from our Planning and Zoning Department, she's our manager there, she has been in close contact with the 3 agencies that issued citations or warning letters to make sure that we are aware of what they are doing, and then if we can, hopefully, if it comes to the need for abatement, that we will coordinate our requirements along with the state so that we're working in conjunction with them so that we're not running 2 separate courses and may miss something. So we want to make sure that they're aware of what we're doing and we're aware of what they're doing as well. Mr. Marshall, Mr. Lowe, Mr. Hicks, did he join you as well? They met on the property with Mr. Klein to actually get a visual of what had taken place, and there was quite a bit of the product stored on the property. It was to be used for leveling out of pastures, and that, you want to talk a little bit about that, Jonathan? And see.
We did meet Mr. Klein on the property. The construction company that was cited, Hamel Construction, had been bringing this product from Carolina Stay-Lite, which is located fairly near that property. He had allowed them to bring it in so that he could, as he said, level out the pasture. And the product had been moved and has been leveled and has blocked a stream, as is noted in the violations. I think you saw the letters for those. But so we saw that and took pictures of that, talked to Mr. Klein about our processes, treat this as we would any violation. When we have violations where there are multiple agencies involved, we always work with those agencies to make sure that we're doing enforcement along with them. There are times where we'll take the lead, times when those agencies will take the lead. In this case, I think because of the technical nature of it, the Environment and Natural Resources and Corps of Engineers will take the lead, but any violations we determine on that property, we'll also look at any remediation plans to make sure it meets our requirements also. So we're doing that all at the same time.
So we'll answer any questions that we can at this time. Just wanted to give you an update that we are on top of this and that we are talking to the appropriate people as we need to make sure we keep you informed throughout the process, so.
Mike, I'm wondering if it might be of some value for the board to, if it so pleases the remainder of the board, to go ahead and do a resolution, and then when we meet in March with our legislators, we can present to them what we have and hopefully get them on board. And that's on the 13th of March, and then our meeting is on the 16th of March. And so it could coincide there, and this would be out of the way instead of waiting till we meet with the legislators and then decide to do a resolution. It might be good to do that up front.
Yeah, we will
that's
have
just a
some language put together prior to that, at that time. I spoke very, very briefly with Senator Hartzell last week and informed him when he was in town that we were moving in that direction, and he is looking forward to that resolution. We will work on, Mr. Cook and I will work on some language and get some advice from Mr. Marshall and Ms. Morris as well, to have some language for you. Again, this is a state decision.
Right.
However, there are some requirements or some conditions that we can request should the permit be approved, that would maybe protect the county or at least keep the county informed of the process throughout the life of the process, while they're applying this material, and providing inspections, results, and that kind of stuff, so that we can make sure that those inspections are actually happening and someone is following through with those.
Right.
But we will have that language, Mr. Cook, what do you think, by the first week of March?
I think that
That'd be
would work
good.
great.
So that you can see it.
And the point of all of that is to make sure that the citizens of Cabarrus County know just that we're not just going to just rubber stamp everything that comes down from the state. If we have any type of an idea that it might not be as good for Cabarrus County as the state might think it might be, and then if we feel like that it's not in our best interest, then we need to at least speak our voice through the protocol. And I think going with the resolutions to the legislators, getting them, with us, then I think it will have more of an impact. And it will also let the citizens of Cabarrus County know that we're on top of this. We're not just putting it in a drawer and forgetting about it, letting
Sure.
the state handle it, or passing the buck, in other words.
That's correct.
Any other questions?
Yeah.
I think the question that I would ask is, based on the speakers that we've heard at the last couple of our meetings, there seems to be an opinion that there are remedies that we could or should be taking that we are ignoring. And so my question would be, is there any involvement, action that we could have in this process more than what you just described?
If there is, I'm not aware of it. I'm trying to ask the experts in this process, and that is the Department of Environment and Natural Resources. They are the ones that receive these applications. They are the ones that review the applications, and they are ultimately the ones that will approve the applications after their due diligence, after they receive public comment, and then after they, and then ultimately craft the actual permit with all of that included. So we are keeping in contact. Every time I have a discussion with Mr. Risgaard, I ask him that very question: is there
Right.
anything else we can do? Is there anything else we can do at this level? Again, we've met with Dr. Rubin, who is I guess would be considered an expert in this field in environmental issues. He has advised us of the same. In fact, he is the one that advised us and recommended that we do include in the resolution, whatever that final language is, those requests of sort of putting some conditions on the permit should it be approved.
Right, great. Well, I've had private citizens come up to me that didn't live in the area or at all to express their opinions and to inquire, why are you not taking action on this? And I've explained to them best I could what I knew. And I guess it has a lot to do with whether you watch a little piece of our meeting or the entire duration of it, is to get the whole picture. But hopefully we can offer some assurance to those people that are concerned that we are taking every action that we can legally to address their concerns. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Next on our discussion items is a department highlight. We talked about that some over the weekend, and this will be infrastructure and asset management, and Jonathan Marshall will talk to us.
So what I'm going to present to you is, you've had a couple of very weighty presentations this evening, very important presentations. What I'm going to present to you is actually an overview of the Department of Infrastructure and Asset Management. This is the same presentation that Michael Miller, who's the Assistant Director for that department, and I made to a supervisor training class for the Cabarrus County. We have all our supervisors go through training classes, and we provide this information to them each time there's a session. And there's a couple reasons for that. One, we want them to know who they need to turn to should there be any issues with facilities or assets, and who they should be in touch with, and what the scope of the department is in terms of what can be taken care of internally. We also want to remind them and remind all the county employees that we're all in charge of county facilities and assets, and it's a responsibility of each county employee to help keep those up, to maintain them and take care of them. You'll see it starts with a question. I won't make you answer the questions. You're going to see a couple of trivia questions in here. I will invite you to, at least in your mind, come up with an answer and see how close you come when we get to the next slide. So the definition, the classic definition of infrastructure, so we just renamed this department last year to more fully explain the scope and what it encompasses. But the classic definition of infrastructure are those buildings, facilities, and systems that help support a community. So most people look at that when you're looking at a community. You're looking at roads, water, sewer, rail, but it's also facilities like hospitals and the schools. It's those things that undergird a community and a region. In this case, what we're talking about are the buildings, facilities, systems, and assets that support county functions. So the primary goal of this department is to take care of all those things that help support our external and internal functions. So this is just the listing of all the different divisions of infrastructure and asset management, and I'm going to go through some of these a little more specifically. So the first trivia question we ask the supervisors is, how many buildings are we responsible for? You can move to the next one. So there's 40 to 50 buildings and shelters. I say 2 jails because there really is the jail annex as well as the jail tower, which is, of course, the larger currently occupied facility. 4 libraries, communication towers. The community colleges, we have different levels of involvement. One of the facilities we actually own, which is the old school administrative offices, that's the current business and technology center. And we have a lease with them, so we maintain some parts of that, and they maintain some parts. The arena, although we have a management, a group, SMG, that manages that for us and does quite a bit of the daily task, including a lot of the custodial and other daily functions. The larger systems and buildings, the infrastructure and asset management maintains. Of course, there are generators located throughout our system to help keep the buildings operated, and that totals about 1.2 million square feet. That division is one supervisor, Richard Stansel, who I sometimes think works 24 hours a day, although I guess he sleeps occasionally, and he has 8 employees that work directly for him in that division. The next division, in building maintenance, just looking at this, you can just see this list, and I won't go through each and every one of those. I will say that fire prevention systems, certainly one of the more important things. We do a lot of testing. The previous director, Kyle Billiford, put in place a number of institutional controls in that respect, where he used calendar reminders that they've continued to maintain that are all internalized, so that they are testing systems throughout this entire list on a regular basis, exercising them, making sure they're all working properly. In addition, with some of these, we have external inspections. So we will, just like any other facility, have fire marshal inspections. Depending on who's using a particular facility, there may be also some state inspectors who will come through, and we'll walk with them and also respond to any needs they raise in that issue. Grounds maintenance is managed by Brian Horn. He's a recent promotion, a staff member who's been with us for 10 years, and on the retirement of Jim Carricker, Brian Horn was promoted to maintain this division. We own 637 acres. That figure goes up and down a little bit. We do take in some properties actually through tax foreclosure, not necessarily by choice, but we have different properties throughout the county we maintain. But most of this is in our county-owned parks and where our facilities are located. And quite a bit of asphalt. I think even with the parking deck, we estimate we're the major supplier of parking in downtown Concord. The 560 acres of county-owned parks, some of that we're doing with our internal staff. Some of those we do have contractors, and of course we review those contracts and bid that work out. There is some, when I talk about maintaining the trees, irrigation systems, weed control, it also includes things like fire ant control, which has become more and more important, and finding people who are specialized and can handle that kind of issue. In addition to Brian, there are 8 employees in that division. Facility services are our custodial and cleaning services. That's supervised by Matt Tardugno. At the bottom it says 1 supervisor and 24 employees. Thank you, there are now 25 employees, or will be soon. We've been interviewing and will be hiring. In particular in downtown, with the courts, the historic courthouse, this building, the jail, and sheriff's office, we have quite a bit of need for someone who can backfill in positions if someone should have to be out. And we just have a need in general. The activity levels in our court system, and we've come to you a number of times about needing to adjust for space. Well, the other thing that happens is there's a lot of people in and out of that building, and that building, of course, is getting some age on it. So it does take quite a bit of work to keep that building up and keep it well maintained. They have daily duties, but they also have weekly duties with floor care. In relocation, if we need to move offices, we have internal staff that can help move those offices, move supplies. They do any kind of room setup, so when you come into this room and it's set up one way, that's the division that's been doing that, and by the time you leave, it'll be set up for something else, probably by midday tomorrow. And again, there's a total now of 1 supervisor and 25 employees. Sign maintenance is also overseen by Richard Stansel, but has 2 employees. These 2 employees are actually cross-trained and help us with quite a number of other functions, but they have an external focus and an internal focus. They do all the street signs throughout the county. We actually do, by contract, do street signs for Harrisburg now, and you'll see they're extremely nice. Harrisburg pays us for those. All street signs used to be just an old oven system, I would call it, a tape and heat system. All that is computerized, so they can do really some incredible work. They do our interior signs. They're able to do the molded plastic that meets ADA requirements. They do banners. If you go out to our parks, you'll see that they did these very large banners where kids, adults, including me, can go up and see what your wingspan is compared to some well-known birds. I am not a condor. I think I'm a blue heron. I'm sorry. We do sandwich boards, which are really some things we switch out quite a bit. So we do a lot of signs the sign staff does a lot of signs that are just needed on a quick basis. And it also includes signs like right now we're advertising for the public hearing you'll be holding on the closure for North Drive. They've already posted that for us, and for the town of Mount Pleasant. We're able to include language for both communities on those signs so we could notice together. There are, again, 2 employees in that division, but they help with a number of other pieces. So then the next question is, how many pieces does fleet maintenance take care of? Didn't give you much time to come up with a figure in your brain, but over 500 pieces of equipment. The largest part of our fleet, of course, are the Sheriff Department vehicles, and you can imagine the importance of making sure those are all maintained properly, as well as our EMS vehicles, at the Department of Human Services, Emergency Management. Within infrastructure and asset management, we have some very unique vehicles in addition to just the service trucks, and then parks and recreation and construction standards. Part of our fleet, in particular at Human Services and Construction Standards, we've been looking for a more sustainable fleet to where we have some hybrid vehicles, and that has helped us a great deal on fuel. Those vehicles have held up very well, so I think we can do an analysis on return on investment. In many cases, particularly, say, Construction Standards, they were driving their personal cars and we were paying the mileage. I think you'll see that there's going to be substantial savings based on what we project now the life of those vehicles to be. There is one supervisor, Dennis Furr, who oversees that division, and he has 5 employees.
I just want to make a comment, just real quick, Jonathan, on that report, because, obviously the school system has a huge fleet, and all the people that take care of all the buses and all that, but to have over 500 pieces of equipment with only 5 people, that says a lot about how conservative and how dependable the cars are that the county's been buying. Because, I would have never guessed 5 people could take care of 500 pieces of equipment. I just wanted to bring that out.
Thank you.
To reiterate.
And we do, there's oftentimes questions about when we finally determine a vehicle needs to be surplus, and they do an excellent job of analyzing that. We do have mileage standards, but as you know, there are going to be times when we have a maintenance history on a vehicle that it's not going to meet our mileage standard for replacement, but they're going to show us what that maintenance history has been. But we have checks and balances within that. So they're going to make the recommendation. It goes through the Infrastructure Asset Management Director and then on to Mr. Downs with all that information so it can be properly assessed before we surplus any vehicle. I'm getting into some of the more externally focused divisions, and that is solid waste. We have a construction and demolition landfill. Of course, we've just completed an expansion of that off of Irish Potato Road. The sheriff's training facility is also located on that property. We accept construction and demolition debris as well as yard waste. People are able to bring their household garbage there also. There is a charge for that unless they bring recyclables, and then there is no drop fee. And we have dumpsters on site, and then that is taken to the municipal solid waste facility at CMS. That is overseen by Kevin Grant, and he has 6 employees total. And then in addition, Kevin works with us on recycling. Of course, we do have recycling pickup by contract, but we also have a household hazardous waste facility that has regular days. We'll do some Saturdays as well as Wednesdays where people can bring in their household hazardous waste, and that can be things like paint, household chemicals, televisions, computers. It has a white goods collection behind it, which we're required by statute to collect things like old ovens and refrigerators. We also use a swap shop. Some of the paint that comes in is actually they're still very much usable, so we have people who make appointments and come down and pick up paint. And Kevin helps them with that. And we also have an employee, Saul Moose, who works at that facility. They do go around. We've been working with the schools on some of their recycling, so we also have some pickups at the schools to help with recycling. In addition to the facility, and that one is on General Services Drive off of Highway 49, right next to the animal shelter. In addition, we have a convenience center located with our landfill for people to bring some of that material there.
May I just make one comment? Some of you know where I live in the driveway that I go up and down every day. Can you imagine if you didn't have that facility on Irish Potato Road? I'd have to be going up and down with that big container. I don't think that would be a pretty sight, so that's what we use is Irish Potato Road. Appreciate it being there.
The annual budget. It's about $11 million. That includes many building projects. So there's going to be a fluctuation to that every year. So that's why it says average. Each year, we send out a survey to the departments and ask them what they foresee in terms of new employees, the possibility of new employees, office changes, alterations, any building projects they may need. Obviously, the bigger ones are going to be things like our parks, who may have shelters or may need to have buildings re-roofed. But they'll give us some response to that. We actually go out and meet with them directly to go through their responses and make sure we understand completely what they're asking. And then staff from the building maintenance division will work either internally or with contractors to come up with prices for that. We then do a priority sheet labeling them A, B, and C, with A being the ones we recommend in your budget to be funded. B would be ones that we could get to if we get savings, and C are ones that we feel can be put off for some time. So that, again, that's going to go up and down. It also may mean that, the year that certainly the old Board of Elections had to be taken down and we built a parking lot, that's a more expensive project, and as well as the project with the courthouse annex are going to really bump that up. And then other years it'll come down because there's less major projects like that to do. So what else does IM handle? We do for special events, bring out recycling and trash cans. Kevin Grant and his staff do that. We track and pay all the utilities, and The fund for that and the budget time is always estimating what we think the rise, and I don't ever say fall, in electric rates will be. The annual budgeting process is 4 to 7 months because it's quite detailed in terms of getting estimates for some of those construction projects. Anytime there's a property issue where we need some kind of surveying, the utility location or renovations or engineering, we take care of all that. Demolitions of buildings and structures, as I said, we took down the old Board of Elections. That building had gone well beyond its useful life and had more structural issues than it would have been worth repairing. We're going to be doing the same with an old building that once was a recycling facility out at the landfill. Mail delivery is handled by IAM. Pest control throughout all our buildings, which is sometimes a bigger issue, particularly as you get into some of our far-flung facilities. There might or might not have been a certain reptile in one of our facilities in Mount Pleasant a couple months ago. And then unique things like Camp Spencer Pool.
I have a question on that one. Are any of those items, such as surveying and perhaps some of the construction renovations and the demolition or pest control, are any of those or a part of those farmed out?
They
bid
are.
out?
Okay. We bid out the pest control. Really, we use, for architecture, engineering, surveying, all of those, we do use a number of local firms for that. We use a request for qualifications process, and then depending on the size of the project, we'll select or even interview firms to determine who we most appropriately to employ for those. Just some of the other things that come out are really environmental. One of the things you'll find is that, particularly our newer facilities, they all have backflow. Well, almost all our facilities now have backflow devices that are required by the utilities. We have quite a few stormwater ponds, and stormwater ponds require, if you're in any of the cities that have a stormwater management program, require us to do both monitoring and then reporting on those on a regular basis. The sustainability efforts, we have been looking at energy management for years now and have really driven down some of our energy costs. We've had conversion to meet new requirements for the T8 conversions or lighting conversions. And we've done a lot of LED light conversion. We're still looking at doing more of that. You'll see motion sensors so that lights automatically go out in rooms that aren't used very often. And we're always looking for other ways that we're using too much energy in a building. The bottom part, the cisterns and BAS. BAS are the building automation systems, so that on the weekend this building is not heated to occupancy comfort. The temperature is much better controlled. But if you don't remember to do a reservation, or if you're me and you forget to remind people that we're going to be having a retreat in here on Saturday, you do have to scramble a little bit on Friday to make sure we were comfortable. And as you can see, it's all automated. So when I had people Friday night alternately telling me they were hot or cold, I was able to send a message to someone who remotely was able to use an application that IT has put in place for us on his phone and adjust the temperature in this room. And then someone else told me they were cold, and then someone else told me they were hot. So there's no adjusting for taste. We're working quite a bit on water conservation. We've looked at our purchasing. A long time ago, we switched to using the plates and glasses, things like that. So.
Just one thing to add, Mr. Hsu, you and I had a conversation earlier on energy conservation or an energy person. Kevin Grant, our person that runs our landfill and our recycling program, is also our energy person, and he sort of coordinates that. But the entire department and really the entire population of county employees are all part of our energy conservation program. It was quite an endeavor to take on initially. We knew that there was a problem because we could see some of those energy vampires that Jonathan had just mentioned. But so we went through a lot of those programs, but a lot of it was just routine and teaching a new routine and teaching new habits, good habits. Turn the lights off when you leave your office. You know, some of the public areas where the lights wouldn't turn on and they were just a switch, the public's not going to turn them off, so we put them on automatic switches. And we've done all sorts of recycling programs. We've reduced printers, we've reduced printer cartridges, anything we could do to save energy and reduce our carbon footprint in the county, we have tried to do. the best we could with the funds that were available, and we are continually searching for that. But while we do have a person that sort of oversees it, he's also overseeing several other programs. So I just wanted to point that out when we started talking about those. But our employees, I need to congratulate them and thank them, because they kicking and screaming. But we are all, for the most part, we are moving forward in our energy conservation efforts. So.
Well, I learned a long time ago that sometimes to be the most effective, you have to step out of your comfort zone. And as we was talking about, some was hot, some was cold. You know, we're not always going to be happy, all of us together at one time, but doing the right thing is what's most important. And if it's going to save money, I know when we go in on our church on Sunday morning, it is cold as all get out. But you get 700-800 people together, it doesn't take long for it to get warm. And but as far as energy conservation, it's everyone's job. It's not just our job as leaders or as county staff. It's everyone's job to try to conserve energy, and because energy turns into money, and I don't know of anybody that don't want to save some money. Thank you for what you do, Manager Downs.
Robbie Furr could probably speak to some of that. We're doing a project right now. We had a bunch of overgrown landscaping at the cooperative extension building that we needed to take out, because we also need to do some structural improvements to that building. It's one we know we're going to be in quite a while, so we're making sure we're keeping it up to date. But we just did a window replacement project. They were in desperate need, and we found some places to insulate better when we did that. In the process, they might have been without windows in some offices for a short period of time, so I'm sure Robbie can speak to that. He had a very much an open-air office for a while there when I was over there. A lot of these things that are listed here, the fire devices, elevators, those are things that we have regular contracts on. So because it is so important to keep them up. The jail elevators, just because of how they're used, not with inmates, but primarily moving food within that building, it's very important that they function properly, and they are used heavily, and that use is hard on them. So we keep regular contracts on all those things. Work very closely with ITS on camera systems, on card readers. The card readers are certainly a better way to control access throughout our building, so we've been doing quite a bit more with that. And then Todd Shanley is working on we keep calling it the global solution for cameras, because we find that the camera system has a variety of uses for us. Unfortunately, we do have vandalism at certain facilities, and those camera systems help us with that. They also help us a great deal with security. And we have quite a few external customers. One of these, Piedmont Development Services, I'm glad to say is an old bullet that can go away. The building has actually gone away now. It's one that we sold, and then it was demolished. Crisis Recovery is on the back side. We sublet to them. That's related to mental health. That's on the back side of our DHS facility. The courthouse, of course, is occupied by state employees, but we're responsible for the upkeep and including furniture in that building. We work with SMG, and of course we have the Arts Council and Historic Cabarrus in the historic courthouse, and we are beginning work on renegotiating those leases, and we'll be bringing those back to you. And then we also have the Farm Bureau and Rowan Community College that are some of our occupants. So the last part, again, this is more for the supervisors for a way to contact us, but certainly if you notice anything with the buildings, please contact me or Michael Miller. Unfortunately, Michael couldn't be here this evening. He already had a commitment, or he would have been doing this presentation along with me. But we do use our work order system, computerized work order system, which works great. In particular, some of our larger facilities, like I said, the jail and sheriff's office, we get quite a few work orders, and those are things that need to be addressed immediately. We have staff from Fleet, grounds, and building who are on call pretty much 24 hours and on weekends, because there are a number of issues that may come up that need to be handled immediately. If we have a water leak, if we have some kind of alarm going off, then someone needs to get there quickly. So they are either carrying pagers or phones so they can get there, and we have people on call to do that.
I want to make one final comment, if I may. I heard this said over the weekend at our retreat, that the citizens of Cabarrus County are getting the bang for their buck when they talk about the 70 cents per 100. And when you take in consideration all of the services that are provided by the county, the maintenance items for the schools, for the county-owned buildings, and all of these different things, all the employees and positions and various servants throughout the network. And when you figure it costs a citizen 70 cents per $100 valuation, I tend to agree that when you see the big picture, we're getting the bang for the buck, and there's no doubt about it. And I think Cabarrus County offers the best service in most cases than anyone around, and we're continually striving to improve that. And we have another issue tonight that we'll be talking about that's relevant to that, trying to improve on the services that we offer our citizens of Cabarrus County. And so I just had to throw that out because I thought it had had major significance, because the citizens are getting a good bang for their buck.
Really appreciate those comments. And I do want to add one last thing as I'm closing. And I used Vietnam Veterans Park dedication as an example of this. I wanted to thank, I thanked the employees of infrastructure and asset management afterward, because there were a lot of employees in this county who worked on that from a number of divisions. It was a big effort that was pulled together fairly quickly, but as things go, as planning for that goes, but there was a lot of background that had to be done on that, and every one of the divisions of IAM worked on that. They weren't the people you saw out front. They were the people supporting those folks who were putting that on, and I think they take that mission so seriously that what they do may not be what's out front, but it allows all those other services that we provide to our external customers to be done, and to be done well.
Well, that completes that presentation. Ask and you shall receive. Is this what you had in mind? This is a little longer than typical department will, because they're such a large department and they're responsible for a lot. But is this the type of information you were envisioning when we talked about that over the weekend? Okay.
I would certainly say yes, and I think it's of great benefit to us as well as the public to understand what all's involved. It's a lot more than most people realize. Thank you very much. Any other questions, Commissioners? If not, we'll move on to our discussion items for action at our February 16th meeting. First one of those is active living and parks, revision to commission bylaws, and Londa Strong is with us to talk about that.
I think my wingspan was the condor. I think I beat him that day up there, what he was talking about. We have the Active Living and Parks Department Commission bylaws, and there's just something that I wanted to see that I thought would work a little bit better than what we do. Currently, we have 11 members plus a liaison from this board. All 11 members are appointed by this board. However, 3 of those members come from other agencies like the Kannapolis School Board, the Cabarrus County School Board, and the Active Living and Parks Senior Center Advisory Council. So those 3 are already appointed by a different agency to be part of the Parks Commission. And then currently we have to bring them to this board to be appointed again. And so that's the basic change, is that we would ask that those 3 positions not be appointed by this board because they are coming from another board. Like if the school board had Vince Powell, that's who they recommended or who they put on the board, and then we brought them here and you all voted them down, then we'd have to go back to the school board and find someone else. So that's the main purpose in wanting to do that. We discussed it at our last, our January park and our Active Living and Park Commission meeting, and it passed unanimously as a recommendation to bring to this board to update our bylaws to include those 3 not be appointed by this board.
Great. Any questions for Londa? It's pretty self-explanatory. Thank you very much. Next item on our agenda is Cooperative Extension, Cabarrus County Youth Council name change, and Robbie Furr is with us, and he may have some folks helping him.
I'm a scoot down. Come right over here. Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Robert Furr, and I'm speaking with, this is Hunter Moore, a member of the Cabarrus County Youth Council, and the item on your agenda is a request from the Youth Council to change their name from the Cabarrus County Youth Council to the Cabarrus County Youth Commission. This is a request that they considered or came up back late summer or early summer in 2014. When the school year was wrapping up, the group at that point did not want to make a decision in May or June, since some of those were rolling off, and wanted to have the new board, the new group, to discuss it when they came back on board when the school started up. So they have discussed this at length, had many meetings about it, and then included in your packet is the letter that they drafted for their request to have that happen. The main reasoning behind this is that in the schools, there's a lot of confusion when you say youth council between the Cabarrus County Youth Council and the City of Concord Youth Council. The mission and the work that those two councils do are very different. And we get a lot of requests for folks wanting to be a part of the City of Concord Youth Council, and the same on the other hand. And I think the group feels like that having a differing name would also help in that matter. Also would help better tie that group to the Board of County Commissioners. The role of the Youth Council is to be a voice and an ear for the commissioners to the youth in the community, and the name reflects that as well. The group met and voted on that at their recent meeting and brought that to you and for you to have discussion about and to hopefully affirm at your February meeting. Hunter is also here after you have questions to share some updates about what the Youth Council is currently doing.
Right, great. Questions for Robbie?
Well, I have two, but I think he just said he's going to answer one of them. You're going to tell me a little bit about what you guys do. And then the second part is, how do people join this council or commission?
Yes, a membership is from 2 youth from each of the Cabarrus County high schools, and then there are 4 at-large positions. So there could be a total of 20 that are on this council. There are currently 14, so there are some vacancies in the group, and currently runs through vacancies throughout the year and throughout the time, and so we're working to get those filled.
And how are they selected?
They're selected as an application process, and then the youth council themselves reviews. They have a committee, a membership committee that reviews the applications, vets them, does interviews, and then approves those applicants. And those names come to you. You guys, I don't know if this particular board has voted on any yet, but they come to you and you approve as members are brought to us.
Any other questions? We'll be delighted to hear from Hunter. I can't help but to compliment you on your suit tie color combination tonight. That was not planned, but we're
Great minds
delighted
think alike.
to have you here and hear from you.
So when we talk about vacancies, we've actually done pretty good. We've actually went up. We now only have 1 vacancy. We have 13 members on the board, and 9 of those are new members. So that's been a big process in coming about this change of name and the whole change of direction. So we've got a whole new mindset on the board. We've already started to do things. We have met with the new library manager to discuss what we can do to help out with this process. We actually have a library committee that's trying to work with bringing up a volunteer organization. We're actually trying to figure out, working with the library to figure out how we can be active and how we can be productive and help the library out. So I'm sure y'all will hear things about that in the future. We're also working to build a relationship with the commissioners. I am the chairman of the communications committee, and that's one of our big goals is we're trying to figure out ways where we're going to communicate with y'all. So we will be in contact with y'all before too long about that, so be ready. But we're starting to do a lot. We have a leadership committee and an education committee that are looking at opportunities across the state, youth summit, youth conferences, any educational opportunity that we can get in. We're starting to tour county facilities. We toured the jail at our last educational meeting. We're looking at things like the Cabarrus Health Alliance, organizations like that, where we can learn what's going on in the county. So we really are setting a new direction. In the past, it's kind of been idle, but right now we're starting to pick up pace, and I think within the next few months we'll really be a thriving program. So,
Thank you very much. Any questions for Hunter? We appreciate you both being with us tonight.
Thank you.
Next item on our agenda is the discussion of the Elma Lomax Incubator Farm funding request. And we have Roland McReynolds and Kelly Sifford, Aaron Newton to talk with us.
Thank you. As you all know, effective July 1st, the farm ceased to be part of Cabarrus County's operations. In September, the Carolina Farm Stewardship took over operations of that under a temporary agreement. We did extend that agreement in December for a year to give them time to establish themselves a little further. They have been working on getting all of that in order. One of the issues was with the short notice on our, when they were released from us, when they ended the service. They were not in a position to go after grant funds that we would typically do. They missed the grant cycle that year. So they have come to us with a request for $25,000 from the deferred tax fund, kind of as an effort to match the $26,000 that they'll, or approximately $26,000 that they will clear from the barn raiser campaign that they have done. I have handed out some information. We had a meeting earlier today with Soil and Water, just a typical management meeting, which Commissioner Shue was at. He is our liaison. And from that, we had a larger discussion, I guess, about the deferred tax fund and where it came from and how much money's there and those kind of things. So for you, I have included from the minutes from the May 21st, 2009, when the fund was initially established, so that you could see what all were considered to be the uses that they had intended at that time. And I also have a balance sheet here showing what has come in each year in that fund and what has been expended over time for you to review. He had asked us for that information as well, so you have that before you. And now I'll let Roland take it over.
Terrific. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak with you here today, members of the Board of Commissioners. We've been very thrilled with the response and the opportunity to help drive more of these economic development and farmer training activities at the Lomax farm. Just in terms of what we were able to accomplish in Q4 of last year, we were able to raise sufficient funds to cover bare bones expenses throughout Q4 and raise 25% of our 2015 operating budget from the barn raiser crowdfunding campaign. 5 farmers graduated from the program last year, 6 others received training, and 3 of those 6 are coming back for this coming year, and 2 more new farmers are starting the program this year. We were able to put on 5 workshops for farmer tenant participants, as well as 2 that were open to the general public, and we had no injuries, no major equipment failures, and maintained all of the county equipment as called for in the temporary operating agreement, no violations of rules and regulations, and we're very excited. We felt like the year ended well. For what we're planning for the coming year, in addition to working with 5 new farmers, or 5 farmers in the incubator program, we have scheduled with Rowan Cabarrus Community College classes in the spring, summer, and fall to provide training to students at the community college outside of the farm incubator program. We'll continue to carry out monthly educational programs with Cooperative Extension, including gardening workshops, a gardening workshop scheduled for March 14th. And we'll continue to provide other specialty learning opportunities to members of the public. We are continuing to host Central United Methodist Church's community garden plot, which grew almost 3 tons of produce last year, 100% of which was donated to Cooperative Christian Ministries. And we are looking forward to continuing that program this year. And we will also be launching an effort both to train the farmers in the incubator program, how to grow sweet potatoes and onions, which will be donated to for hunger relief here in Cabarrus County. All the production from this dedicated sweet potato and onion plots. And we are also doing vegetable seedling production for CMC Northeast Hospital, for McAllister Elementary School garden, for the Central United Methodist charity plot, and we're making the opportunity available to the Master Gardeners to grow plants for the Master Gardeners annual plant sale. So we're really planning to make full use of the assets that are available at the Lomax farm to benefit Cabarrus County, as well as to continue to benefit the growth of the farming community here in this part of North Carolina. We've been, again, very, very pleased with the opportunity to maintain this program. Our board is excited about the opportunity to continue to serve as the sponsor for this project in 2015. As I said, our budget that we expect for 2015 amounts to about $100,000. And so far, we've been successful at raising a quarter of it. We expect to conduct fundraising events over the course of 2015, and we've already made some headway in terms of identifying corporate sponsors. Lomax, the participation fees that the farmers in training pay are increased over what they had been when the county was operating the program. So we have a diversified strategy here. Because of the challenges in terms of fundraising, we do welcome the opportunity to request from the county some portion of support over the remainder of the fiscal year to help ensure that these programs can continue to be successful throughout this year. And I welcome any questions you all have about operations or the needs.
So you kind of alluded to at the beginning, the abrupt end to the program and
Yes.
all. Would you say that this is a one-time ask of $25,000 because of that abrupt ending to kind of get you through? Is that kind of what you're thinking?
Well, it is our thinking that in terms of the ability to deliver the programs as we're called for here, and as we'd like to deliver in 2015, that's what is going to be what would be welcome. As we continue to interact with our community advisory board and determine what the long-term future of the program will be, whether or not it will be its own separate entity, whether or not it will continue to be a program of CFSA, because those conversations have begun, but they are not complete. I wouldn't feel comfortable pledging on behalf of any future entity that this is just a one-time ask. But I think for the purposes of this fiscal year, that certainly we would not be coming back.
Thank you once again, Roland. A little bit too loud here for being here. But one of the questions I had, first off, I'm wholeheartedly supporting the Lomax farm.
I appreciate that.
And the way, the turn of events, the way they happened, obviously wasn't the way that I would have supported it. But anyway, it happened, and now we're dealing with it. And I noticed most of the correspondence that we have always refers to 2015. And you alluded to it just a little bit.
Right.
What are, the CFSA, are they actively pursuing a much longer-term relationship on this farm?
Absolutely. We are looking at a wide range of grant opportunities that would support activities on the farm, research on the farm, as well as expansion of the infrastructure and the facilities on the farm. All of which we would have to do in partnership with the county under the terms of our operating agreements. We certainly would not make any improvements or changes without working hand in hand with the county to ensure that plan would be realistic and effective. But yes, there's a lot of opportunities. Again, we have opted for a one-year extension of the current agreement because we do feel that is the amount of time we need to establish a broader community sort of plan and understanding. And it would be great if, in a few months, we're able to come to you and talk and present a longer-term vision for how we can continue to partner with the county in this project.
I agree, and I would never discount the fact that there might be times in the future under whatever entity takes over with
Right.
the Lomax farm, that there could always be a potential for matching funds, which is basically what this is. This
Exactly.
is basically a matching fund. You raise $26,000, you need 25, so, that's not really no big deal. But, I just want to ensure that, that the folks just running it are making sure that they're doing what they can to privatize this, to take it, a step further down the road, and it would not be dependent on the county all the time, although matching grants could be, a potential.
Absolutely.
Any other questions? Thank you very much for being with us. I
pleasure.
applaud your efforts in the private fundraising arena. I had an opportunity to look at the barn raiser campaign. I was quite surprised at the diversity of people from other areas as well that pledged support for the program. I think it's an important part of what I think we should try to do here in Cabarrus County to preserve our agricultural heritage and continue to have the flavor in Cabarrus County that we all appreciate, and certainly hats off to Scott Avett. I know he has helped you guys out with some publicity, and that is certainly very much appreciated.
Very grateful for that.
So I'm anxious to I visited the farm recently and enjoyed that very much. It's one of those places that makes you excited for spring to come.
Exactly.
Those are the things that I think about when I'm there. So we will certainly consider this at our February 16th meeting, and thank you again for being with us tonight.
Terrific. My pleasure. Thank you all very much.
Next item up is the Aging Strategic Plan. We have Jonathan and Mackenzie Mullinax to talk with us about that.
So Mackenzie's going to make a presentation to you. For some of you, I think this will be the first time the Aging Strategic Plan has been presented. Others have heard this before, but she's going to give you an overview and some more information, and then I'll follow that with a couple of comments.
For the new board members, this is Mackenzie. She works in ALPS, Active Living in Parks. She is, what is your title? Wellness
Coordinator.
Wellness Coordinator. So as you can see, Wellness Coordinator isn't really assigned to aging plans. But we asked, and she stepped up, and she volunteered because she's very passionate about what she does and what the department does. So we thank Mackenzie for doing that. So I just wanted to introduce you to her, but also let you know that she did step up beyond her typical requirements of her job and has taken this project on along with and sort of coordinated. This isn't just Mackenzie, and it's just not Mr. Marshall. This was about 20, 25 people.
More than that.
Yeah, probably more than that. If you take the nonprofits and the private sector that they're already working with, but I did want to make sure you understood that this is a project that Mackenzie sort of volunteered. We volunteered, but she accepted. So.
Well, thank you for your time. And we're here to request adoption for the Aging Strategic Plan to prepare Cabarrus County for the fastest growing population we have. For the next 20 years, statistics show that the citizens aged 60 and older will be the fastest growing population. Nationally, each day, 10,000 baby boomers turn 65 and will continue for the next 10 to 20 years. In 2025, 10 years from today, there will be 1 in 4 North Carolinians that will be 65 or older. And right here in Cabarrus County, by year 2030, there will be more adults aged 65 and older than school-age children 0 to 17. So these are the statistics that pointed to a need for thoughtful planning here in Cabarrus County. This fast-growing population, you may have heard or know, is called the baby boomer generation. A baby boomer is anybody that was born between the age 1964, 1946, and 1964. So you think about that, you might know some people that are in that age range. So under the direction of county management, staff, and local municipalities, the Aging Strategic Plan was developed. It addresses the needs of older adults and their families. This plan provides the county with a vision, a set of strategies, dealing with 6 areas of focus. Those 6 areas are health and wellness, income, employment, recreation, transportation, and housing and home improvement. Meeting the needs with services and programs that we currently use and making those adjustments to better meet the needs is the primary goal of this plan. The work and initiatives in the plan are not new, and they do not require additional staff to accomplish. The previous Board of Commissioners did not adopt the plan, but that hasn't stopped the forward movement and the obligation that we have to serve this population. Over the past year, I'm going to give you some couple things that we have done to address these needs. Planning and Development is working on a housing project marketed to older residents with private and nonprofits. The Active Living and Parks Department now offer additional classes in the evening times, as well as we've added new classes to meet the wide range of older adults that we serve. The fitness center participation at the Concord Senior Center has increased dramatically with the renovations and is now even offering personal training classes. The CRC, the Community Resource Connection, continues to grow with partnerships and resources with the one-stop shop approach. Senior Health and Wellness Day is an annual health fair for older adults in March. It has a new twist this year. Educational and interactive sessions will be offered, and we will have numerous interactive booths so citizens will have that hands-on experience and to learn about the programs and services that are offered. Lunch Plus clubs have taken trips and held several special events to engage older adults in an active lifestyle. Numerous programs and services have been highlighted on Channel 22 to raise awareness. We continue to plan and increase the number of evidence-based classes that we offer throughout the county. These include Living Healthy with Diabetes, Tomando, which is Living Healthy in Spanish, as well as A Matter of Balance, which deals with fall prevention. The Senior Center Advisory Council added a new committee to enhance awareness of programs and encourage marketing and outreach to underserved populations. So as you can see, this plan is a living document with strategies added and deleted and amended over time in accordance with emerging opportunities, resources, and changing realities. With a more informed public, improved access to services, and a healthier, more engaged population, we hope to address the needs and work in partnership to efficiently and effectively address this growing population.
So when we were talking about this presentation, one of the immediate questions that come up is, why are we asking you to adopt this plan? Because what Mackenzie's just told you is we have existing groups. Those are public, private, nonprofit, people across the community that are addressing the issues that come along with this aging population and with this growing segment of our population. So why is it important that you then adopt it if we're doing these things and these agencies are already in place and we've already put in place what we think are more effective and efficient ways to work together? Well, I think it's an extension of what you discussed this weekend. It really starts with the municipalities that you talked with, because the municipalities deal with the aging population in many of their programs. It goes on to the different departments, different within our own county government that each have some role in this. And ultimately it gets to the larger community where you see, again, the private sector responding to this growing population. Mackenzie mentioned one of the things that's going to come before you in just a moment is Kelly Sifford's going to bring a housing project before you that's one of the very things we discussed when we were going through this process. So we're asking you to adopt it because we feel like it shows a commitment to this growing population, to the growing needs. It also shows a commitment to making sure that we're meeting those needs as efficiently as we possibly can, whether that means realigning programs, re-emphasizing certain programs, bringing other things on. There's not additional expense at this point. It's not to say that when you look at your CIP, we won't begin showing another senior center at some point in the future in another part of the county. Those kind of things we'll continue to work on, but really it's showing a commitment by this board to make sure that we are, as a county, through our services and in partnership with the municipalities, nonprofits, and private sector, addressing the needs of the aging population.
Thank you very much. Questions, commissioners?
I'm just glad, since I fall in that category, that we're doing something for people like us. Most of us are probably in that category, except maybe just for a couple.
Aren't you glad she didn't make us raise our hands?
Well,
but you've
let's
got
don't be
the right
bashful
age
about
group.
it. But you look at it on a positive point. Just think of those that didn't make it as far as we have. So you look at it like that. And I'm just glad that we've come this far, and I appreciate the hard work and the effort, and then the perseverance to keep on, even though it met with failure before, doesn't mean it's going to mean with failure again. So you just keep moving forward.
Great. Any other questions? Thank you very much for being with us tonight.
Thank you.
Did you have something, Don? Okay.
Push your button. Yeah.
Right. Oh, no, we can go back, no problem. Next item on our agenda is from Finance, Susan Fearington, to talk about some refunding projects.
Just to give you a little update, at our next, at your regular meeting on the 16th, we will have our referendum ready to approve for our refunding. Right now, we're currently continuing to work with our bond counsel and underwriters, trying to decide if we're going to do a private placement or a public offering, see what the market conditions are showing. And so we should know that in the next week, but all the documents will be ready for the time for your regular scheduled meeting. Just to update.
Any questions for Susan?
No question, but just one comment from my experience with this board in the past. They do a fantastic job of keeping track of things and seeing how they can save things for us, money for us, continually keeping track of that. And I think the public needs to know that,
Right.
that they're constantly doing that.
Thank you.
Agree with that. Any other questions? Thank you,
Well,
Susan.
I just have just a brief, and I don't want to, take up a lot of time, but, being one of the new members on the board and coming from another board, that's one of the things that I readily recognized when I became a county commissioner, is that this county staff, this finance department is really, really, I can't even find the right words, really, very adamant about doing the right thing and saving money, looking at all avenues and guarding the county's funds and doing what's best for the county citizens. And I, for one, certainly appreciate that, and not saying that other boards or municipalities don't do the same thing, but I can see firsthand that our people said, if you got, you wanting money, you're going to have to prove you need it. So, and I appreciate you looking for ways to save us money. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the comments.
Thank you. Okay, next item is Planning and Development Construction Standards Staffing Request. And Kelly Sifford is with us for our next 3 items on the agenda, starting with this one.
Yes, thank you. Before you, we have brought forward a construction standard staffing request for 2 additional inspectors. 2 years ago in the summer, did not have enough staffing, and it began to boom, and we got way behind. And it was not a good time for anybody, the builders or us, trying to catch up. So we're trying to stay ahead of it. We do have adequate revenues to cover this. Just to give you an example of the swing in the level of service that we have to provide, February 13, we provided 2,142 inspections. June 14, we had 4,424. So we more than doubled with the same staff. So what we're trying to do is to start addressing some of that. Currently, our inspectors are doing more than the state recommendation. So we're trying to start leveling that out. We will likely be bringing more requests in the new budget year, but all of that would be covered by the revenues that we are already generating. Are there questions?
Any questions? Thank you. We certainly want to stay on top of this.
Sorry.
This is one of those areas where we can help private business be successful.
And I apologize, this is Scott DeVoe, the Chief Building Inspector, and he is here for this and for the fee schedule, so.
Scott, by the way, is more than bilingual. I haven't seen him have to interpret in French yet, but he is bilingual, Spanish and English.
And he provides those services to all departments for us.
We have
anytime it's
a
needed.
lot of customers who need that service, so it's nice to know when you're talking about public safety or building issues that can result in life safety, danger to life safety, that you know what the person's saying and they know what you're saying. So.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, next item is the home program 2015-16 funding year, and Kelly's going to tell us about that.
And this is the project that Mackenzie and Jonathan were alluding to. As you all know, the home program, we've been participants in that program for probably at least 20 years now. Cabarrus County has always done single-family rehab in the past. As you know, we have struggled with that the past few years. We've talked about being able to get families to qualify, having problems with that, having problems moving forward. Louise Mack with Prosperity Unlimited, and I know many of you know Louise, and unfortunately she couldn't be here tonight. She is recovering from surgery, so she is not with us, but hopefully will be here on the 16th. She and this is Roy Helm with
Wesley Community Development.
Yes, Wesley Community Development. They are basically the same type of organization that Louise is. They have a great deal, they being Wesley Community Development, have a great deal of experience with elderly housing projects, affordable housing projects for seniors, in this case defined as 55 and older. They are going to be cooperating with Louise on this project. Louise will be 51% owner in her organization, and they will be 49%. They have a site that Prosperity currently owns that is adjacent to Living Water Church of God, which is our nutrition site in Kannapolis. I think probably all of you have been there at some point to visit and see the site. So what we are proposing this year is to use our home funds towards this project. It has several benefits. One of the criticisms of the home program has been that it benefits less people. This will allow us to have a much larger benefit. The need has been identified very specifically in our aging plan that we need more elderly housing. This site is ideal because it is next to the Nutrition Lunch Plus Club. It is on a bus route. It is near the hospital. It is near shopping. It has all of the things in it that are big winners with these programs with getting funded with the income tax credit program. So in front of you there is an example of a project that they did in, that one's Moxville, right?
This is in Moxville over in Davie County.
We are proposing something similar, but 2 stories instead because there is a zoning limitation on height in that area. So are there questions?
Any questions, Commissioners?
I think it's a good way to spend the home funds myself. You know, it's going to benefit a lot more people and have a much more attractive thing that's going to meet a service that we desperately need. So.
Can I add something?
Yes, absolutely.
If I could just add, if your endorsement of home funds for this project would be a huge plus for our effort to obtain funding. The applications for tax credits to build these types of projects are very competitive. There are a number of applications this year, and every dollar of home money that can be contributed to the project means less money per unit from the tax credit program. And the way the scoring process works, the programs or the projects that ask for the least amount of tax credit dollars per unit are the ones that are the winners. So to the extent that Cabarrus County can contribute home dollars to this project, along with the city of Kannapolis, which is very excited about the project and has indicated that they're going to put home dollars towards the project as well. To the extent that we can have those funds contributed to the project, it will greatly, greatly benefit our application and make it very, very likely that we will win an award of the tax credits.
Let me ask a question about the residents. Is this strictly a rental situation where they rent the properties?
Yes, ma'am.
On a yearly lease basis or whatever? It's not like Taylor Glen where they go in and are there forever, you know, with the different stages. So this is strictly rental property for people 65 and older?
Yes, ma'am. It's 55 and older. It's 55 and older, yes, ma'am. It is rental property. It is independent living. However, one of the things that we have attempted to do in all of our properties, including the one that we just completed in Moxville, and we will do here, is to put in place programs, and we will design a building such that someone can age in place. We have designed the units so that someone who starts out and is mobile and it does not have a walker or wheelchair. As they age, their unit can accommodate their needs as they get older. All of the doorways will be 3-foot wide doorways, so a wheelchair can access the doorways. All of the working spaces in kitchens will have a 5-foot turning radius so that a wheelchair could access that. Bathrooms are designed the same way with wide turning radiuses. The concept is that it will allow folks to remain in their rental unit longer and hopefully would reduce the amount of time that they would spend in a skilled care center in the later stages of their life. And that's one of the goals, I think, of all these programs, and certainly of what we're building, is we want folks to be able to reside there as long as they are physically able to.
Well, I think it's an excellent idea because currently there's very little, if anything, between living in the home that you're in and going into a facility, a full-service facility. So this seems like a perfect fit for that kind of thing. And if we can encourage private investors to do that, I think that's what we should do.
Well, thank you. I would also add that in every project that we've completed, the rental has been extraordinarily fast. Within a matter of just a few months, the properties are at 100% occupancy and then have waiting lists at that point. So we expect, based on the need in Cabarrus County and in the city of Kannapolis, we expect the lease up to be every bit as fast here, maybe even faster because of the need in the county.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And one last thing on this, I would like to, I'm going to ask that I amend this sheet to authorize staff to issue a commitment letter for them so that they can put that with their application and move forward with it. It's stronger, obviously, if they have the commitment letter already in place.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next item on our agenda is planning and development fee schedule, and Kelly's going to talk with us about that.
And I apologize for killing all the trees I have tonight, but we had a lot of late-breaking action going on with this agenda. And I have Susie and Scott with me. I think you all know Susie very well. Okay, what we are requesting on this is to start looking at the fee schedule for planning and zoning and for building inspections. We had previously provided you with a kind of an example fee schedule because it's the easiest way to represent the difference in cost. We have this sheet, which is on your iPad, should be on your iPad. That is a single-family home, and it shows the current permitting fee and then a range from 2.5% up to 10% increase to show you, because we have not adjusted the prices of any of the permits since 2007. We have, since that time, added inspections and have longer inspections due to the 2012 Energy Code adoption. There are more, there's a little bit more with the insulation, and we have to look at the energy certificates on these homes now. So there's additional inspections involved with that. What we had done on down in here, you can see that we had estimated about average amount of time that should be spent on an inspection, and we had last year sat down and actually had a cost put to that. The $86 an hour you see is to actually put an inspector on the road, the car, the uniforms, the benefits, the insurance, everything that goes with putting a car on the road, so that you could see how much it costs for us to deliver the inspections and how much we were recouping of that, so that you could make a better decision about how much of an increase you felt like was appropriate, if you feel like an increase is appropriate. Are there any questions on the building side? And we did discuss this, I guess it was about a year ago now, with the building industry. At the time, the feedback was that if we were going to have increases, they wanted to make sure that they were guaranteed next-day inspections. That is their largest concern, as I understand it, that they want to know that they're going to get the next-day inspection, and that this is going toward, any increases are going toward making sure that our staffing can accommodate that.
One question that I had, looking at the chart where you've got the 5%, 7%,
Correct.
10%, and you've got the total cost. So our break, I mean, do any of these cover the entire cost? It doesn't look like it does.
Not really, no.
No.
We're just working very hard to
Right,
cover them.
get closer to it.
Yes,
So the
yes.
figures that you, on this draft document, you've had it out, your proposed fees, where does that fall on this chart? Is that 10%, 7%, 5%?
Well, I
It
put a range,
varies.
I put a range out there for you all, and it may be that you don't even want to evenly distribute that. The trades are where we are hurting the worst. So it may be that you want to increase the trades more than you would the building permit. That is entirely up to you what combination. I wanted to put out a range for you to consider.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't sure what the right combination was, and given that it was 2007, the last time we updated it, obviously, we are somewhat behind. But I was kind of leaving that open for you all to decide what was the appropriate amount.
The table that you're looking at is actually for the planning and zoning fees. So
Mhm.
that one is really cost comparative to fees that other jurisdictions charge. It's not percentage like the building one is.
Right.
Yeah, we addressed it two different ways.
And your mechanical, electrical, and those kind of things are not?
They are on, yes.
They're included in this as well?
Yes,
They're not.
like, it's kind of, we had to do it on an average cost. If you look under the current permit fees,
Mhm.
if you were getting a permit for a 3,365 square foot heated space house, these are the permit fees that you would pay today. The plumbing fee is $69.01. That is based on fixtures. So we did, just an average number of fixtures you would find in a home that size. The mechanical is based on tonnage of the unit, and the electrical is watts, or, I'm sorry.
It's based on amps.
Amps,
Hold on, real quick.
yes.
The handout that you got, that's not what they're talking about.
Yes, this,
The chart that's
yes,
in the...
this is the one on the iPad.
Because I was looking for it myself.
I'm sorry. Yes, it is on the iPad. So it's on the screen right now. So the fees that you see there would be on an average house like that. That's the only way for us to really project it and show you kind of an average cost per unit. So if they had more fixtures, plumbing fixtures, that fee would be a little more. It would be a little less if they had less plumbing fixtures. If their mechanical is larger, then the fee may be a little larger. If they have more amps, that may be a little more. Although these are very typical of a single-family residence.
Right, and so based on those assumptions, our cost is $100 more than what we're charging on the plumbing piece of it.
Yes.
And then you've got it broke down each.
Exactly. And that's
each-
why I was trying to express that there may be some difference in how you want to handle the trades versus how you want to handle the building permit itself, because there tends to be a greater disparity between the trades.
And now, do you have proposed increases for the trades in this chart?
Yes. It's
I
the
see
2.5, the
a yes
5.
and a no.
That is the planning and zoning fees.
Right.
He's holding the wrong
What-
chart.
yeah,
Yeah.
what
Right,
you
so
have is.
That's what I'm saying. You're not offering a suggestion. You're just saying what the percentages are.
No, I am not offering a specific suggestion
Okay.
because I wasn't sure what the range should be,
Right.
given the amount of time that's gone by. Obviously, we cannot raise fees to collect 100%. That would be a huge increase very quickly on the industry. So the proposal was kind of left to, whatever we recoup above and beyond is going to be better than it is today.
Right.
the main thing is we want to be able to support the staffing that we need to ensure that we are getting next day inspections and that we are doing the proper number of inspections, that we can get the building inspections department in line with a reasonable number of inspections a day.
And so if we took the maximum number, 10%, on this chart, then that would increase the total fees on a 3,300 square foot house by about less than $100.
Correct.
A little less than $100.
Correct.
Okay.
If
Just
you
wanna
go
make
all the
sure
way
I'm reading
across
it.
there, that it shows the 10%. So for plumbing, you would go from 6901 to 7591. So
Right.
And then, Kelly, looking at the bottom line there, where you have the accumulation with the hours and the trips and all of that.
correct.
And it says total cost to the county, $1,161.
Correct.
That's what it cost us.
On
But-
average.
On an average, to do these inspections for a single-family dwelling. But yet, we're only collecting $849. Is that right?
That's correct.
So we're looking at 9, 10, 11, a little over $300 deficit on every home.
Correct.
All right. Now, even if we took this up to the 10% increase, it cost us $934. That's still $200 plus deficit per single-family dwelling.
Correct. And I don't want it to sound like we are running in the red. We're not. We are not running in the red because we are doing more inspections per person than is recommended. This is if we spent 50 minutes on everyone. Now, some of them won't take that. You know, this is, again, an average. Some of them, you may be going for a re-inspection, and it may take you 10 minutes to do it because you know exactly what you're looking for. But having said that, they may or may not have charged for that second visit, so it may not have even been included. You know, it's hard to get a good average because you don't know all of the factors that go into it. But this is just, if we were in an ideal world going and doing an inspection on the amount of time that you really should take to do it, you know, those kind of factors.
Well, I don't think, that anyone that's building a home, whether it be many homes or one home, would argue that a little extra on the fee, they're not going to argue that, I don't think, because everybody knows that builds a house, time is money, especially if you got a construction loan and you got a certain amount of time to get it done, you've had rain. And then as we've talked before about this, if you've got someone building a home and it rained 3 days out of the week and he wants to pour concrete for his carport on Saturday, or even in some cases on Sunday, well, obviously it takes personnel to get out there and do that, and which that would actually inflate this cost to the county. If
It
that's
could.
not taken into consideration, that would actually inflate that cost to the county. And I don't think that the county, in just my opinion, I don't think that the county should bear the brunt of a loss because someone's building a home to provide the legal inspections that are required. And, to get it to where it needs to be, to where it's at least, the very least, a break even. I don't know what that would be, how big of an increase it would take, but I don't think that the increase is the issue. It's the service that we're providing to those people so they can continue on with their project, and we don't want Cabarrus County to be the ones to hold them up. And that's just my thoughts on it. We don't want to hold up a project for whatever reason because of a $10 or $15 or a $20 add on to a fee.
Other questions, commissioners?
Well, it's a little bit opposite of what he's having to say. I'd like to know how we compare with other ring counties like Union and so forth in the fees that we charge, because a large developer from out of state coming in wanting to do a 500-house development that's going to be a whole lot of money, the difference in fees between counties. And we're seeing an uptick again in housing, and we have other costs with all of this development, in the school buildings and the roads and all of the other things that come with this development. So I think that we need to be at least in line with other counties, if not more than other counties, as a way of helping to hold that loss down or that
tell you
increase
that,
in costs. I mean, that's just another way of looking at it.
Yeah, I can tell you that this is comparable with Mecklenburg. This is the way that they calculate it, and I think they were around $87, $88. One of the factors that plays into this too is travel time between sites. Cabarrus County, you probably have, especially on one side of the county, you have more travel time between sites than you do. We do have inspectors assigned to regions so that we reduce travel time to address that. But having said that, the prices range a good bit, but we are competitive with all of them. But we went with this method of pricing simply because that's what it cost us to provide the service. And so we wanted you to know what it cost us to provide the service so that you could make the appropriate decision about how much of that should be recaptured. We did discuss kind of this range with the building industry back a year ago when this was first initially brought up. This amount was somewhat agreeable based on the conversations that we had. I didn't have any conversations about amounts above this, so that would probably be something that we would want to get out with the building industry and have some conversations about. I would not look before April 1st to make this effective. If you're going to adopt something, I would look for April 1st or July 1st. Either way, we need to do some notification to give people time to prepare. But we would like some guidance soon so that we can start notifying people of what that amount might be and when it might be effective.
I have one more comment. Just thinking in terms of the growth again, and this comes from our experience with the schools. I'm hearing you say that this is based on like a one-bathroom home. Just a very, well, I mean,
No.
you said something.
Number
back
of fixtures.
Number of fixtures, okay. If this schedule encourages the smaller, if it gets more expensive to build, well, how do I put this? Is there a correlation between the housing price that a developer is going to do and the fees that go with that house? Are we encouraging more lower price development, or are we encouraging higher price development, which helps to pay for the schools?
I don't know that
Or
just the
is
building
there no
cost.
correlation?
Yeah, I don't know that the building cost is necessarily the full driver. I think there are a lot of other development costs that probably drive, what the price point of that would be. How much it costs to provide water and sewer. Most of our, area, it would have to be a fairly large lot for it to be a subdivision, because we have no water and sewer in our service area. Depending on how much they could acquire the land for, things like that kind of drive the price points more than probably building costs do.
But I think directly to your question, I think it's probably neutral in that respect because it goes up and down with the square footage, with the tonnages of the units, with the number of fixtures. So I don't think it's going to encourage one size home over another. It's going to move with that decision that's already been made.
And when you say you had spoken with the builders a year ago, they were, what percentage were you talking with them about at the time that they seemed to be?
We discussed this range.
10% or just anywhere from 2 to 10?
We said we're discussing anywhere from 2.5% to 10%. Obviously, they weren't interested in the 10%. Nobody wants a 10% increase, but their response at that time was, well, as long as we're getting next day service and you're using it for staffing, doing the things you have to do in order to make sure that next day service is available to us, we can accept that. So that was as far as that conversation went at that time, is up to 10%.
And do all of these numbers get them next day service?
Can I say?
Sure, absolutely.
We've been pretty successful, and we've always tried to provide next day service in the builders know that if we can provide that they can depend on from everything from their scheduling concrete till, closing their loans. And with our numbers having increased, that they have increased since 2013 and steadily up till now, the big fear is that, well, do what you got to do within reason. We just don't want to start having to wait days and days and days. And there was a brief period in the summer of 2013, well, it was really the whole summer, the staffing level dropped and we had some people leave. And it threw everything into a turmoil because days were going by and there was panic. And so they said, whatever you need to do within reason, we just need to know we can depend on you guys for the next day.
And when was the last time you said there was a price increase?
2007.
And then, can I ask you on this sheet a question?
Absolutely.
Okay. On the ones where it says like $450 plus engineer reviewing fees.
Yes.
What do those fees run, or how is that determined? Is it a set fee, or is it based on time, or how is that determined?
That is currently our standard practice. However, the fee schedule doesn't reflect that. So what happens is essentially we send it off to the engineer. He does the review, bills at a per hour rate. Finance pays the bill, and then we have to turn around and bill the applicant.
So that's not a change.
That is not a change. It's simply to put people on notice that this is how the process works from the get-go.
And the same thing with the one about the paper. So is that not a change either, the cost of advertising? For the ones that have plus cost of advertising on them?
Most of them are only with the cost of advertising. Now, with some of the new ones, like with the street closure, there are some that we didn't have fees for. So we are requesting that folks pay the cost of advertising. For example, with a street closure, the noticing requires that you send out a certified letter. Each of those are almost $7 now. The last one that we did, it was almost $300 just for mailing. So if it has cost of advertising, some of those are more specialized requests that include that cost of advertising because the cost of the actual process is lower. Some of them right now, the cost of the process or what we charge is actually less than what we pay in advertising.
Just trying to recapture the cost, the
Right.
direct, no markup for the county, it's a direct pass-through on those expenses.
Yes, and some of these, like Susie said, we didn't even have fees for some of these. We were just kind of absorbing it, but there was a lot of staff time involved with the activity, and so some of these are new, and some of them are just clarifications and codification of what we've been doing.
And the only change on the paper handout that you have this evening from what was in the system was we were looking at potentially adding a cost for a floodplain development permit because, as Kelly said, it does involve a lot of staff time. It involves site visits, potentially having people from the state down dealing with engineering. Because we participate in the community rating system program, we weren't sure if we were able to recapture any of that cost, but I did get confirmation from the state this morning that we are able to. So that is the only change on this from what was in your original packet.
We currently pay for, this program currently, building inspection currently pays what it costs to run the program. However, we're working overtime now to try to keep up. I can tell you right now, if you are a commercial project and you submit a plan, they're going to tell you 5 weeks. 5 weeks to review that plan. Partly because we added an additional plan reviewer, 6 months ago or a year ago. However, we had to take on residential plan review, so every bit of that person's time is doing residential. So the commercial is still laying on the shoulders of one person again. So these fee increases will allow us to recoup more of a real cost, or to the real cost, but it's also allowing us to move forward and add additional personnel so that we're not working overtime. And there's other programs that we're required to make inspections that we don't give any money for, such as school inspections. We're supposed to be in those schools twice a year now? Twice a year, every single school. Well, that's not a 5-minute inspection. You're in that school for a half a day probably, trying to do that. So one inspector it could take a lot of time for just one inspector just to do those, and we're not getting anything back from that. That's just a requirement by statute that we've got to be there. There's a few others like that, I think, that we've got to.
Minimum housing.
Yeah.
Or if we go and look at a building for condemnation purposes, we can't get the fees back on any of that.
So not only are we not getting fees for that, it's taking time of that inspector who could be out doing regular home inspections too, so.
During the slowdown from 8 till 13, we had the personnel that we probably got now, with the exception of the person that you added in planning, somewhere thereabouts.
During the time when the permits slowed down, we compressed. Some of the positions that were cut were inspector positions. I think we went from 22 inspectors to 11.
And planning positions as well.
Right.
Somewhere in that range. We either did layoffs, or we did have some positions we were able to move them into in general services.
Well, I think it's expedient that we go ahead and make some changes, because, I mean, to go from 2007 to 2015 with no changes, and with growth accelerating like it is, that we have got to account for that some way. And so I think that we should move. I know between now and we vote on this on the 16th, but my thinking is we ought to be in the 5 to 7% range increase at a minimum to help better cover the costs associated with providing these services. And so that's just my input, and whatever the other commissioners think, that's certainly, their thoughts.
I think Commissioner Minot makes a very good point about I'm not sure the difference in the fees has a tremendous impact on promoting residential growth. But, we just heard a scenario where commercial plans are having a long wait period, more than residential issues. From a county standpoint, commercial growth is going to be much more beneficial to our tax base than residential growth. So it kind of sounds like we're doing it backwards. Back during that time period in 2013, the telephone calls that I received from people that were unhappy about the amount of time that it took for inspections were, you guys need to do something about this. You need to pay your inspectors better. You need to increase your fees or do whatever you have to do so that you're not costing me money, keeping my men from doing their job, when they had work. So it was a very, very clear desire from the building industry that they were much more interested in service than they were in price. And then if you add to that what Commissioner Minot pointed out about the increase, if we don't charge enough to cover our cost, then that means the balance of that cost is having to be picked up by the taxpayers. Then we're also asking them to pick up the additional cost of this residential construction to provide the schools and all the other things that we know that come along with growth. So, I would kind of like to see what a schedule looked like that brought us to a true break-even point. And whatever the percentage is that's associated with that, I would like to see a schedule that says, okay, this is what we need to charge to cover our cost, and then we can figure out what that percentage is, although I'm not sure if that's particularly relevant, but I think that would put us in a better position to provide the kind of service that the building industry folks want us to provide, while being fairer to our taxpayers at the same time. That's up to the rest of the board whether we want, and Kelly, if you want us to act on this at our February meeting, or if we're talking about taking a look at something like that, if you'd prefer timing-wise to do it in March, give us some feedback.
I think if we're looking at that kind of increase, we probably would like to take it back to the building industry and talk to them and at least get some feedback before we go there. we have typically given them that courtesy, at least to have that conversation ahead of time. I'm sure either way, you're going to have feedback, but you probably want it before you make the decision rather than after. So if this was meant to kind of start the conversation, we don't have to have a decision in February. That's not necessary at all. As I said, I wouldn't look for an effective date before April 1st at best. July 1st may be more realistic. But we needed to start the conversation. We needed to kind of get a feel for where you are. Scott and I can schedule a meeting with the building industry and kind of talk to them about what if we went to basically 100% of our cost and start. I'm sure you'll hear from them as well about that, but start that conversation and get some feedback and bring it back to you and kind of go from there if that's acceptable.
Yeah, I think we need to update for commercial as well, industrial, because you don't have a sample of it.
Well, we
that I can
didn't
see.
suggest those because they cover themselves.
Okay.
We had not recommended any increases. We were only trying to cover things that weren't paying for themselves, trying to start recapturing some of that. That's why we had not included that. If you would like us to bring that to you as well, but right now they're covering their cost.
Okay, okay, we'll talk, but I think we need to, right now, we're not staffed properly to plan review.
Correct.
And so that's a cost that we're not covering because we can't add another plan reviewer, so
Okay.
that's.
So you want to look at.
I think we need to look at that too, so we can give the board a clearer picture.
Yeah.
So-
I personally would feel better about that because right now we are completely reliant on one staff person, and should he be out sick or anything for any kind of extended period of time, we do not have an answer. So it would be good for us to have some more backup in that. We're getting to that point where we could probably absorb it, so we can bring that forward as well.
So I guess to your question, Mr. Chair, how about we come, let's see, this is February. We come back first week of April, your April work session, that'll give us an opportunity to adjust these, include commercial, and meet with the builders. Commercial and residential, if we can, and give you their feedback, give you our feedback, so we'll get a truer cost, and then maybe revenues are running fine at this level if we get these additional positions, and then maybe we look for a July 1 start date, and that'll give everybody an opportunity to adjust.
And I don't mean to add more work, but if they can guesstimate how much additional income would come from the inspections over what they suggested, or in other words, how much would we be asking the general public to pay to make up for the difference in the actual cost on this chart that she showed us?
Okay, yeah, currently we pay for.
Am I talking about no money at all or substantial amounts of
Right.
money? And it would grow as we increase development.
Sure. The inspections pay for themselves, pay for the department now. It covers 100%. As we grow, revenues are going to have to grow with it so we can add staff. But we will never come to you and ask, well, it'll never get to it. We'll come to you again later to raise fees before we would come in and ask for employees that are already covered by revenues. But per statute, you can only charge fees to cover the cost of the program. It can't be a profit or a money-making.
Oh, I understand
venture.
that. I'm
Okay.
just saying, if
Right.
we're incurring a loss, and that loss
Sure.
is going on the backs of the other taxpayers, and we can use that
Correct.
difference toward what we need it for,
Yes, ma'am.
no
And if I
matter how
interpret
little it is.
correctly, the only reason that we're not currently incurring a loss is because we're not providing the level of service, for example, on these plan reviews, that the people presenting them would like for us to incur. I had a call from somebody over the summer about a minor thing, cutting a door through in a commercial building, and they had submitted their plans and because they were going to be closed or July the 4th. That's when they wanted to do it. And they had to wait for that plan to be reviewed for X number of weeks. I think they were able to work with them on that to help. But those are just the kind of things that, if you're doing a project like that, if it's a little more in the fee to get the level of service, they probably save money with labor and so forth. So do we have a consensus to go through that process? By having this conversation tonight, we've given the public an opportunity to hear what we're talking about and respond back to us, and then if we go directly to the building industry as well, I think that provides a pretty smooth process. Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next item on our agenda is the interlocal agreement with Union County allowing backup for 911 for the Sheriff's Office. We have Todd Chanley and Ray Gillian with us to talk about that. Welcome, gentlemen. Thank you for being so patient.
Oh, no
waiting
problem.
through all of our other discussions.
Here's the interlocal agreement between Cabarrus County and Union County. Approximately 5 years ago, the 911 Board had tasked all 911 centers in North Carolina to come up with a plan, a backup plan if they did not have one. We here in Cabarrus currently have a backup plan and a backup center. Union County is looking to Cabarrus County for their backup center. In other words, they want to be hosted with the extra space we have within our communication center. So in the event of an emergency where they would lose power, someone dig up a line, bad weather of some sort where they would be down for a significant amount of time, that they have a place they could come and operate Union County communications. Back over the summer, we did a proof of concept with Union County where they brought their equipment in, hooked it up in our center, and they run a 12-hour shift out of our center in Cabarrus County back to Union County. This would be just Cabarrus County as a host site and not actually spending any monies at this point in time. And this is for consideration between both of us.
A question? Can I ask a question?
Sure.
You guys okay?
Yep.
Ray, will this, are they actually installing equipment or are they using our equipment?
They will be installing their equipment, end-user equipment, to dial back into their networks in Union County.
Will that, in our current arrangement, aren't we also the backup for Concord and Kannapolis and vice versa, right?
Let me grab that one for you. So from a technical standpoint, we manage Concord and Kannapolis' 911 system. They run on our servers, they use our equipment, we maintain that, the IT staff maintains that 911 equipment in their locations currently. So more or less, we are their backup, but we're also very much tied together as one system currently. And this would be basically allowing them to add, I believe it's 4 positions into our 911 center from Union County to ride on there just like those other positions at Concord and Kannapolis do.
Okay, so if there is something that impacts our county and Concord and Kannapolis needs to move or relocate or use our system, is there still ample space for them to relocate as well if they need to?
There's ample space currently in our center for a couple positions, but we also have a backup site that has 7 positions that will house both centers if they needed to go somewhere.
Thanks. Just wanted to make sure that got out, the info got out. Yeah. So just wanted you to understand as well that we aren't taking up space. We are still able to accommodate our own entities should something go down that's large enough that would impact both jurisdictions.
So we have our own backup center. We're not relying on another county like they're talking about doing?
That is correct. We use, as you know, there's 3 911 centers here in Cabarrus County.
Right.
Cabarrus County, Concord, and Kannapolis. In the event of a failure of whatever sort, and Cabarrus County would have to bug out and go to our backup center. In the interim, we need our 911 lines to roll over to someone to be answered while we're in transit. And those centers are Concord and Kannapolis. We got half of our 911 calls are split between the two, basically.
Right.
Until we get set up, cut the lights on, log on to the computers.
So in the event of a problem in Union County, they would have to physically get in their vehicles and drive here to operate there. And I'm sure they have a plan for that interim period as well.
They do. Their calls would roll over to us
Right.
in the interim, in transit.
Where is our backup?
The DSS site.
Okay.
The county's backup
I'm
data center.
asking for their purpose.
Okay.
So, yeah.
See, I wasn't going to ask. I thought it might be a secret bunker.
So I've trained them to not ask where the backup data center is because I don't tell them.
Yeah.
And when the cameras are on.
Any other questions, commissioners? Another, we've spent a lot of time talking about collaboration and cooperation and when we can do it with our neighboring counties. I think that's a good thing as well. Thank you for being here tonight.
Yes, thank you all.
Okay, next item is approval of the agenda for our regular meeting, and I think we've already made, did I skip something else? Amendment to meeting schedule, and it's on red right here on my sheet. Page 128, and I think this deals with our meeting in a box with our legislative delegation. And I think that is, if no one has any questions, that is scheduled to be on our consent. Is it on our consent agenda? Yes.
March 13th. We have 100%.
I did hear back from our state legislators. They are all fine with that date. I proposed the time. If anyone objects to that time, we can adjust the resolution prior to the regular meeting if that time proposes a problem for anyone. But the legislators all said that morning availability was best for them.
Everybody good with that? Great. Now we'll move on to approval of the regular meeting agenda. And we on, let's see, I think on F8, planning and development fee schedule, we talked about moving that to a future meeting. Are there any other changes that anyone would like to see on the agenda? If not, I would entertain a motion that we approve the agenda with the deletion of F8. You have a question, Commissioner Honeycutt.
I think I must be looking at the wrong one here, so I'll make that motion, although if you'll repeat it.
Okay, the approval of the agenda as presented with the deletion of item F8, which on our consent agenda is planning and development fee schedule.
Fee schedule, right.
Yeah, which we had talked about. They would bring back some additional information.
So moved.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. As I mentioned earlier, we do not have need of a closed session tonight, so I would entertain a motion to adjourn. I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, no. And we are adjourned. Thank you very much. And we will reconvene on February 16th for our regular meeting.